Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Danzo gives Naruto Sharingan. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Naruto's alarm went off at precisely 6:45, and was immediately struck on the snooze button. 10 minutes later the process repeated. Then again. Naruto finally got up an hour later and abruptly screamed, "I'm late." An extremely quick and cold shower later and a cup of ramen later, Naruto rushed out the door. A different teacher was at the front of the class when Naruto walked in. He blinked twice, then he yawned and rubbed his eyes. 15 minutes were not enough time to prepare. Then saw the seat next to Sakura was open. After a mental shout of lucky, he rushed over and sat down next to her. "What are you doing here?" Sakura asked with a frown, before he could speak. That frown grew when she saw the metal plate with the Konoha leaf around his neck. "You didn't graduate. Hey, can't you see this forehead protector?" Naruto proudly tapped the protector Iruka-sensei had given him. Sakura gave him a disbelieving look, but before she could protest, Iruka walked into the room. "All right, quiet down. We are going to be assigning you to your teams." The class didn't quiet down in the slightest. Iruka made a boar seal and invoked his terrifying giant head technique before shouting, "Quiet down, you brats." The class went abruptly quiet. Iruka released the skill and his head returned to its normal size. Iruka addressed the class and gave the class of academy graduates its last real lecture. "Beginning today you are all real ninja. But you are still merely rookie genin. The hard part has just started. Now, you will soon be assigned duties by the village. So today we will be creating the 3-man teams. And each team will have a Junin sensei. You will follow that sensei's instructions as you complete the assigned duties. Now for Team 1. Naruto tuned out everyone as he repeated, "Sakura-chan." Then anyone but Sasuke, in his head like a mantra against evil. "Sakura Haruno. Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke Uchiha, you are on Team 7. Iruka cut Naruto off before he could protest the team assignments. The last thing Naruto needed was to irritate his Junin instructor on the first day. "Your Junin is Shimura Danzo-san." An old bandaged man in the back of the room raised his cane and said, "Team 7 will meet me at Training Ground 7. Danzo abruptly body flickered away. All 3 members of Team 7 abruptly despaired. Their Junin was an old man. Iruka kept reading off teams as they left the classroom. Naruto broke the silence as they walked together. "So where's Training Ground 7 anyway?" "Naruto, you idiot, the training grounds are in order from the gate." Sasuke grunted and wondered where in the hell Sakura had learned that from. It certainly hadn't been in any of their academy lessons. He pushed the thought from his mind and went back to brooding over their Junin sensei. There was no way he would get strong enough to kill his brother training under some has been. He would have to request a reassignment as soon as possible, that way he could leave the idiots behind also. Training Ground 7 was a big clearing surrounded on 3 sides by the woods that backed up to a small pond. Team 7 sat down near the small tree in the middle of the clearing and waited. Sakura tried to get Sasuke to sit next to her, but was dismissed with a grunt that finally set Naruto off. He pointed and shouted at Sasuke, "Why does an outstanding ninja like me have to be on the same team as a bum like you?" "What did you say to Sasuke-kun?" Naruto winced and closed his eyes as Sakura swung a fist at him. There was a loud thump and Sakura was flying across the grass. Naruto opened his eyes to see Sakura sprawled across the grass wheezing for air. Naruto was beside her in a second. "Are you okay, Sakura-chan?" A deep and disgusted voice broke his attention. Their Junin instructor had arrived. "Worthless. I send 3 genin to unfamiliar territory and they don't even bother to observe their surroundings. Moreover, they bicker among themselves. You blonde brat. You're on this team because Sasuke's grades were first among all 27 graduates, and you were dead last. Be grateful we found a team for you." He turned his eyes of the wheezing form of Sakura. Pinky striking a teammate outside of a spar is absolutely forbidden. The next time any of you violate this rule, I will see you stripped from the ninja program entirely. Am I understood? Naruto gave an unenthusiastic, "Yes," while Sasuke grunted and Sakura tried to get enough breath to respond. "Yes, what?" Danzo decided that he would treasure the look on the 3 genins' faces for the rest of his days. He wondered if this was why Sarutobi loved teaching. He just forced his face to look more and more enraged as Naruto tried to figure out what he was saying and the Uchiha brat argued with his pride. Finally Sakura recovered her breath enough to firmly say, "Yes, sensei." Naruto immediately copied her while Sasuke grunted again. Danzo narrowed his eyes at the boy and mentally debated the consequences of beating the treasured last Uchiha within an inch of death. The boy finally gave in and muttered, "Yes, sensei." Danzo made a mental note to work on the boy's respect for authority before he instructed, "I will train you each personally one day at the start of the week. You will practice what I have assigned on your own while your teammates are in individual training. On Thursdays we will conduct team training. Fridays will be used to complete missions. Saturdays will be reserved for additional instruction of my choice. Sundays will be a free day. Am I clear?" The three answered quicker this time, "Yes, sensei." Danzo muttered, "Maybe you can learn, just loud enough for the three of them to hear." Then continued his speech. "As of today there is a ban on inter-squad relationships and flirting in general during duty hours. I don't care what you do during your off day, but when you are under my command you have better things to do than asking for dates or trying to seduce someone." Naruto and Sakura gave him a pair of horrified looks which he ignored with great ease. He stared at them another moment then relented, "Naruto, I will train you today. Sakura, you will not perform strenuous activities that will further aggravate your no doubt bruised chest today." Danzo took a few steps then noticed Naruto wasn't following. He kept the exasperation from his face and yelled, "Come on brat." Naruto cringed and jumped after Danzo. Danzo came to a stop in a small clearing nearby, and said, "We will begin by evaluating your skills." Danzo sat his cane down and fell into a stance. He reached his single arm towards Naruto and instructed, "First a spar, taijutsu only." Naruto immediately charged the old man, screaming at the top of his lungs. He then found himself abruptly flipping through the air, until his face dug a small trench in the earth. Danzo's deep voice boomed behind him, "Ninjas do not scream when they attack." Again, Naruto growled and charged Danzo again. Danzo blocked Naruto's wild blows easily as Naruto tried to pummel him. When Naruto tried to catch him off guard with a sudden and terribly unbalanced high kick, Danzo decided he had seen enough. He caught the boy's leg and suddenly reversed the Naruto's momentum, sending him to dig another trench near the first. "Terrible, did you even go to the academy?" Naruto snarled and picked himself up, obviously ready to continue. Danzo frowned at his student before the boy could charge him and said, "Sit down and calm yourself." Naruto blinked and did as he was told. Danzo retrieved his cane and sat down in front of Naruto. Ninja cannot afford to let emotion rule their sense on the battlefield. A display like you have put on today can cost lives, Naruto. Danzo shaped his face into that stern but fatherly glare of Sarutobi's that had annoyed him so much in the past, and continued. Ninja must remain calmly analytical in order to perceive and exploit their opponent's weaknesses. You on the other hand are a brawler and a terrible one at that. Naruto's face broke out in a pout, forcing Danzo to suppress a sigh. He decided to change the subject to something that he could compliment Naruto on before the boy decided to mouth off again. "Tell me each of the ninjutsu you have mastered." Naruto's face immediately brightened. Danzo didn't know whether to be happy with his success or disgusted with how easy it was to manipulate the kid. He made a mental not to address that and turned his attention to his student in time to hear, disguise, substitution, why and shadow clone. Why? Danzo immediately wondered. Then he had to keep a giant grin off his face as he mentally complimented Naruto's victory over Sarutobi. When he recovered he decided to go through with his planned compliment. The boy probably didn't receive very many anyway. "That is very impressive, Naruto. Shadow clone is a Junin level skill. I have never heard of a genin with it in his repertoire. Now please produce a shadow clone." Danzo was whistling a happy tune in his head. Time for some stress relief and to teach a lesson. Naruto jumped up and screamed out, "Shadow clone." Danzo suppressed a wince and made a mental note to work on the noise level. Otherwise he was tremendously impressed. Naruto had mastered the reduced seal version. He briefly wondered if Naruto's academy record was accurate. Then 10 annoying clone opened their mouths and assured him it was. "I'm the best, believe it." It took 60 years of experience to keep the horror off of his face. The boy had inherited the Uzumaki verbal tic. Danzo's voice was very calm when he asked, "Will the real one please go stand behind that tree?" One of the blondes broke off the group and hid behind the tree. Danzo gestured for a clone to come closer and whispered, "The number is 23, into its ear moments before ramming his cane through its chest. He channeled wind chakra through his staff and brutally cut apart the other clones. "Hey, what was that for?" Danzo resisted the urge to tell the brat stress relief. Instead he queried, "What is the number?" 23. A look of confusion spread across Naruto's face. "Hey, how'd I know that, Danzo-sensei?" Shadow clone is a forbidden technique for several reasons. First, it splits a user's chakra amongst the clones created, which almost guarantees chakra exhaustion for anyone short of Junin. Even then, most Junin couldn't throw around the number of clones you seem to employ, which brings us to the second reason shadow clone is forbidden. You gain all the memories of a clone when it's destroyed. Isn't that a good thing? To some extent, yes. But absorbing too many memories at the same time can easily cause brain damage if it doesn't kill you outright. For this reason, during training you will create no more than 10 shadow clones a day, and will release them sequentially. Naruto's face scrunched up. Sequentially? Danzo resisted the urge to roll his eyes, one by one. Danzo paused a moment, then decided he might as well finish the explanation. Maybe it would wise the boy up to politics. Those are the two official reasons shadow clone is forbidden. However, both of those drawbacks could be easily handled by a Junin or an exceptional Chunin. The real reason shadow clone is forbidden is pride and politics. Huh? The shadow clone is one of the very few clone techniques that can fool a Byakugan or a Sharingan. The Hyuga and the Uchiha made the addition of the shadow clone jutsu to the Forbidden Scroll one of their conditions for joining the village. The Shodai thought that this was a fair trade, especially since most of the experienced senju could perform the technique and could pass it on to their descendants as a family technique. Unfortunately, the senju have with a sole exception died out and the shadow clone has become a largely lost technique. Danzo idly wondered how much it would piss off Sarutobi if he told the kid that several of the senju had married into the Uzumaki. The total confusion spreading across Naruto's face made him dismiss the idea. Why would they care if someone from Kahona could fool them? We're all on the same side. Danzo was truly and deeply impressed by the level of naivety that statement betrayed. Fortunately, he knew exactly how to explain the situation. "Naruto, you and Sasuke are on the same team, right?" Naruto looked down and gave a barely audible, "I guess. Do you want to let Sasuke show you up all the time because you're on the same side?" "No way." Danzo winced at the blonde's noise level. Then Naruto realized what he had been getting at with a soft, "Oh." Danzo grabbed his cane and slowly stood up. He waited for Naruto to stand, then instructed, "You're dismissed for lunch. Return within an hour for the afternoon session." "Am I understood?" "Yes, sensei." Naruto cheered and then vanished into the woods. Danzo allowed himself a small smirk. Naruto would be the first one to put the appropriate amount of enthusiasm into a confirmation. He walked back into the main clearing to see Sakura lying beneath the single shade tree watching with stars in her eyes as Sasuke shot fireballs into the woods. It took 60 years of self-control not to beat the idiots within an inch of their lives. He had told the girl light training not sit on your dead ass and stare at your crush, and he certainly hadn't told either of them burn the woods down. It took Danzo several seconds to recover enough to dismiss them for lunch. When they were gone, he walked over and examined the scorched trees that had stood since the second had trained his teams here. They would live, a testament to the thick bark their age had given them. He found his great relief that his bento was only slightly scorched in its hiding place among the trees. He resolved to make the Uchiha's first day of personal training hell and sat down against the smoking wood to enjoy his lunch. He popped an octopus ball in his mouth and spent a moment savoring the flavor before he turned his attention to his problem of the day, Naruto. He mused, the boy is basically an academy student. His taijutsu is terrible and he only has a single ninjutsu of note. The only really extraordinary thing about him is his lineage and his absurd chakra capacity. He enjoyed another octopus ball, then added, and the noise level. A few pickled radishes later, Danzo decided he would continue with his original plan and test the boy's weapon skills, stealth, trap detection and trap construction in the afternoon session. He would have to find another opportunity to evaluate Naruto's espionage skills. Danzo quickly finished off his lunch and disposed of the bento. He needed to set up a couple traps before the brats showed back up. DT. Naruto was on his 14th bowl of miso ramen to the horror of Ichiraku's other patrons when he bothered to check the time. He spent the next minute wondering if he could finish another bowl before he left, but eventually decided against it. He produced his frog wallet and paid the bill before rushing off towards Training Ground 7 while screaming, "Thanks Ayame-chan," at the top of his lungs. To his great amazement, he was the first one back to the training ground. He started to sit beneath the shade tree so he could finish digesting his meal of delicious ramen. Then he remembered Danzo-sensei screaming at them that morning about not checking their surroundings. Naruto decided to look around. Maybe if he found something Danzo-sensei would teach him a cool technique that he could use to impress Sakura-chan. Naruto found Danzo-sensei sitting in the middle of the clearing they had practiced in during the morning. He had jabbed his cane into the ground and was leaning against it. His unbandaged eye was closed. Naruto wondered if his sensei was asleep, and decided to take advantage of this golden opportunity to get a little revenge for Sakura-chan and that unfair rule about asking for dates. He quietly walked into the clearing only to feel his foot catch on something. There was a faint clicking noise, and Naruto's eyes widened just in time for the ground to start exploding. He rolled forward before the explosions could reach him and felt another wire trigger. Suddenly the ground beneath him came alive and he was dragged into the trees by a concealed net. A third trap triggered and little stones started pelting him from every direction. Danzo managed to not snicker at the great number of explicatives raining down from the net. There was obviously at least one area where Naruto's vocabulary wasn't stunted. The rock launchers he set up finally ran out of ammo, and he called up to Naruto, "Trap detection, failed. Though your stealth is very good for a genin, I didn't hear you till you entered the clearing." Danzo decided not to mention he could sense the absurd amount of chakra Naruto emitted from a good bit further. Danzo-sensei, can you let me down?" Danzo put on his best impression of Sarutobi's grandfather face in case the boy could see him, then said, "Sure," in a tone that made Naruto seriously question the wisdom of his last request. Before Naruto could change his mind, Danzo snapped off a kunai to cut the rope holding the net up in the trees. Danzo made sure to keep up the grandfather face as the boy fell screaming to the forest floor. "That looks like it hurt," Danzo mused as he walked over to where Naruto was twitching on the ground. He gave Naruto a small smile that wasn't reciprocated before saying, "You have 10 minutes to prepare the clearing with whatever traps you can construct. After which I will enter and you are to engage me with weapons only." There was a groan, then Naruto responded, "Yes, sensei." Naruto hurried to untangle himself. 10 minutes wasn't very long and he really wanted a little revenge. That smile was creeping him out. It looked just like old man Hokage's smile. A big foxy smile spread over his face. Evil old man smile or not, Danzo-sensei had challenged the prank master of Konoha to a game on his home field. He had 20 feet of ninja wire, 10 kunai, 10 shuriken, a smoke grenade and some paint. Time to get to work. Danzo walked towards the clearing. He could sense 8 or 9 separate chakra sources in the woods around the clearing and one in the center. He mentally congratulated his student on utilizing Shadow Clone to compensate for the short time frame. Danzo almost laughed when he saw Naruto sitting in the center of the clearing leaning up against a stick with his eyes closed. The urge to laugh increased when he heard the soft snores coming from his student. He resisted the urge to throw a kunai to see if it was the real one or not. Sarutobi wouldn't approve if he sent a genin to the hospital after all. He was almost disappointed when he saw the tripwire. It was fairly good, comparable to the work of an experienced genin, but he had expected better. He stepped over it cautiously and almost put his foot down before he noticed a slight ripple in the ground. He looked at the buried tripwire he had almost set off and mentally congratulated his student. "Excellent, Naruto, that would have fooled most chunin, but you'll have to do better." He found a safe place to advance towards the sleeping blonde, and was about to rudely wake Naruto when he heard a deep rumbling in the woods. A great red serpent with foul yellow smoke pouring from its mouth crashed through the trees towards Danzo. For a moment Danzo's mind shut down, then it started screaming at the top of its lungs. He planted his feet and thrust his cane towards the beast, wind style, 3 vacuum spears. Shuriken rained down from various angles, forcing Danzo to sign quickly and strike the ground, earth style, rocky shield. He was about to counter when he felt someone jab a kunai towards his back. He was about to cut them down with his wind chakra cane when he heard Naruto shout, "You have 2 arms." He remembered exactly what he was doing. He caught Naruto's hand and said in a calm voice as he could manage, "Enough." He wondered, how am I going to explain this? Before forcing himself to relax. Danzo looked back at the snake and realized it was nothing more than a tree trunk with a snake head crudely carved on one end. The smoke had been a smoke bomb jammed in the thing's mouth. His now calm mind wondered, how in the hell did he pull this off in 10 minutes? Where did he get the paint anyway? Danzo looked at Naruto sitting nearby with a nervous expression on his face and wondered how to score, made me think Orochimaru was coming to eat me on a standard trap skill level assessment. Yes, I have 2 arms. I don't normally use my right arm outside of actual combat. He waved his metal-shrouded arm for emphasis. It's a replacement for an old injury and doesn't react very well to sustained use. Forcing me to pull it out was excellent, Naruto. He slipped the arm back in its sling while the boy beamed. Let's start at the beginning of this test. Explain your decisions for setting up the first 2 tripwires the way you did. The first wire was a distraction, it didn't go anywhere. Danzo nodded, he had expected that. But I had 2 clones up in the trees nearby. If you had triggered it, they would have pelted you as though they were a kunai trap, hopefully without giving up their positions. Danzo mentally smiled and decided, that layering is clever, even though I doubt it would have worked. The second trap was made entirely of shadow cloned wire that I buried. It was tensed right up to the breaking point, so when someone stepped on it the wire would dismiss and release all those rock traps of yours I collected. That is an impressive level of familiarity with shadow clone, Naruto. Tell me, how did you decide to apply it in that way? Naruto looked distinctly embarrassed. I ran out of normal wire, and broke the cloned wire 3 times trying to get that tree up in the air. Danzo stared at the boy a moment, then allowed himself to grin. Naruto, you know the shinobi rules of conduct? Yes, there are other unwritten rules that you learn as you grow older. One of these is, whatever happens, it's all according to the plan. A big grin broke out across Naruto's face. Yes, sensei. Now do you know why the 3rd layer of your trap was so effective? It was unexpected? Danzo put on a contemplative face and said, well, it certainly was surprising, but that's not why it was really effective. Naruto looked really confused again, so Danzo decided to teach a bit of history. About 15 years ago, Konoha was the home of 3 incredibly powerful ninja called the Sannin. These ninja were Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru. Each was famous for, among other things, being the holder of a summoning contract. Tsunade had the slugs, Jiraiya had the frogs and Orochimaru had the snake contract. After the last Great War, the Sannin were heralded as heroes of the leaf and were given the freedom to do what they choose. The 3 went their own ways, and we to our great regret realized our trust in Orochimaru was misplaced. Danzo smiled at Naruto's entranced expression and continued. You see, Orochimaru abused the trust placed in him and conducted a series of terrible experiments on people he had kidnapped from around the Leaf Village. The 3rd and 4th discovered this and drove him from the village, but were unable to kill him. Danzo resolved to keep his opinion about Sarutobi being a fool who let his feelings cloud his judgment out of the little history lesson and finished. So Orochimaru is still out there today, an S-class criminal performing vile experiments and waiting for his chance to gain revenge against Konoha. Naruto took a few seconds to put everything together, then said, so it was effective because you thought that the tree was one of Orochimaru's summons? Absolutely, for a few seconds I panicked when I saw it. Danzo almost laughed at the disbelief written all over Naruto's face. He tapped the 3 finger-sized holes drilled into the forehead of the carved snake and said, here is your proof. Vacuum spear is a technique designed to kill by precisely destroying vital areas. It is not something I would use in a spar. The fact that I did is an indication of how startled I was and a lesson on the importance of maintaining calm in combat. Danzo decided not to mention he had been a fraction of a second from bisecting the boy when he had caught himself. Things like that resulted in talks with every ninja's natural enemy, therapists. Danzo checked the time and decided to use the remainder of the afternoon to help the boy with his taijutsu, and left him with several exercises to help improve it. He idly considered giving Naruto a scroll on tree walking but decided to wait until the next personal lesson so he had time to make a few annotations that would be helpful for someone with high chakra capacity. He found Sasuke practicing taijutsu forms and spent a few moments observing the various flaws in his stance before dismissing him for the day. They would work on those during his personal lesson after he finished his skill evaluations. Danzo wondered where exactly his third genin was when an Anbu in a cat mask appeared nearby. He had a sudden sinking feeling he knew exactly where his third student was. That was confirmed moments later when the Anbu said, "Danzo-sama, Hokage-sama requests your presence." The Anbu vanished in a body flicker. Danzo spent a moment grumbling about pink-haired brats crying to mommy before body flickering to the Hokage tower. DT. The secretary just waved him into Sarutobi's office when he arrived. The door was closed behind him, obviously not a good sign. Sarutobi was at his desk, which was mysteriously clear of paperwork, another bad sign. The third Hokage gave Danzo a very ugly look, then started, "Junin Shimura Danzo, on your first day of training you managed to send one of your genin to the hospital with 3 bruised ribs. Would you care to explain yourself? Who goes to the hospital for bruises? Oh well, time for token protests." Danzo's mind immediately supplied and he started. "I did not hit her hard enough for a genin to incur such injuries. She should have at most had a big welt. And what made you think giving a genin a big welt was a good idea?" Danzo quashed the desire to laugh at how irritated his old rival was and idly wondered if he would have to use Shisui's eye to avoid an inconvenient punishment. Danzo waited just the right amount of time for Sarutobi to reel in his anger and said, "Let's look at what I have gained today along with striking the fangirl. I have orchestrated events to give Naruto the impression that I am a hard but fair instructor. I have given Sakura a dose of reality and laid down some ground rules she will now follow out of fear, and when I hit his fangirl I impressed the Uchiha just enough that he would not complain and try to get a new instructor. So these reports I have received about you striking a student then teaching another while ignoring the other 2 students has no merit. No, it is substantially accurate." Danzo kept from grinning at how irritated Sarutobi looked. The Hokage reined in his temper again and said, "Do explain." "I laid down a few rules today, then trained Naruto. I will train Sakura tomorrow provided she shows up, then I will train Sasuke on Wednesday. Group training is on Thursday and missions are Friday. Saturday will be used at my discretion and Sunday is free. That was among the rules I laid down. I take it that didn't make the report?" Sarutobi looked more irritated than ever when he deadpanned, "No, it was not." Sarutobi obviously came to a decision. He asked, "How is training Naruto?" "He has terrible taijutsu skills, lackluster chakra control and enough power to level a mountain." Of course it was amusing. "I think I finally understand the joys of teaching. I evaluated his trap construction skills as well. And, in 10 minutes he managed to convince me Orochimaru had decided to come visit. The scorecard doesn't go high enough to give him a rating. Is there any way I can get the kid to look over the traps for root headquarters?" Sarutobi looked dumbfounded, and Danzo resolved to give all surprising news about his team in person if at all possible. Sarutobi recovered and then took a deep draw on his pipe before pronouncing, "Very well, for the deliberate injury of one of your students you sacrifice a week's pay. See that it doesn't happen again, Junin Shimura Danzo. And you can have Naruto look over root headquarters defenses provided he doesn't realize what exactly he is doing." "Thank you, Hokage-sama. I will treat it as a theoretical exercise." To Danzo's great surprise his 3 genin were quietly talking underneath the shade tree. He channeled a bit of chakra and mumbled, "Release." His students were still there, talking quietly. Danzo shrugged, he hadn't known they could do anything quietly. Danzo listened as Naruto regaled them with a grossly exaggerated description of the previous day's test. He was obviously excited to have other people pay attention to him. Danzo filled that tidbit away and decided to interrupt before Naruto spilled everything. Danzo's body flickered in front of his students and barked off a quick, "Good morning." Sakura and Naruto chorused, "Good morning, sensei." Though Sakura looked a bit nervous. The Uchiha grunted a greeting and Sakura had stars in her eyes. Naruto moped at the display and Danzo ruthlessly quashed the urge to beat the stupid out of them. He allowed himself a small sigh and started the daily announcements. "Naruto, you will focus on the exercises given to you yesterday. Also make a few clones and have them practice leaf balancing. Sasuke, stick with taijutsu and chakra building exercises today. You can indulge your pyromaniac tendencies at a later date. Sakura, you're with me. Danzo stalked off the bridge with Sakura in tow. The snake-headed log that Naruto built was still hanging at one edge of the clearing. Sakura kept darting curious glances at it. Clearly Naruto hadn't reached that part of the story when Danzo had interrupted. He gave her another moment to look about before starting. We will begin with a taijutsu spar. She looked very uneasy, so Danzo added, I won't injure your chest further. Yes, sensei, Sakura replied before falling into an academy stance. Danzo sat his cane down and reached his arm out to match her. She attacked at once, a quick jab and a thrown elbow as she shifted stances. Danzo struck low, disruption the shift, leaving Sakura stumbling. He broke off and allowed her to gain her balance. She attacked again in the same pattern. This time Danzo blocked the jab and hooked his arm through her elbow. A brief twist later and Sakura was sent crashing to the ground. Predictability is a tactical sin. Danzo barked as Sakura pulled herself upright. She fell into another stance and came at him again. A mistake later and Sakura became reacquainted with the ground. Danzo continued the spar, sending Sakura flying every time she made a weak transition or fell into a pattern. Eager to avoid a third trip to the ground, Sakura rapidly demonstrated her knowledge of the 4 fundamental academy stances and the 8 standard opening combinations. Danzo continued to smash her weak transitions. By the time Danzo was satisfied, Sakura was breathing hard and covering in a layer of grimy sweat. Danzo gestured to sit and lectured in a disappointed tone. You have an adequate intellectual understanding of the forms. Unfortunately, that is the only positive thing I can say. Your taijutsu lacks polish and it's obvious you have done the bare minimum of physical conditioning required by the academy. Your strength and stamina are a bad joke. Danzo stopped when he saw the tears forming in the girl's eyes. Damn, so much for relying on her desire to be the teacher's pet to force her to improve. Danzo paused and considered. Obviously I will have to be more subtle with her than I was with Naruto. Or use Shisui's eye. He put on his kind old man face and changed the subject. Sakura, why do you want to be a ninja? She blinked away the tears and said, Sasuke and someone else. I want to stay close to them. Someone else? Danzo mused before focusing. He couldn't accept that answer, but he couldn't just ream her either. Then he remembered an old interrogation technique from the Second War and had to fight to keep the smile off his face. He could ream her after all. Sakura, I'm going to be blunt. If you cannot find a better reason, leave the ranks and don't come back. The moment you put on that headband you gave away your childhood, your foolish little crush will get your teammates killed. You have till after lunch to choose a better reason. Danzo watched the first sobs break out, then body flickered away to dismiss Naruto and Sasuke, leaving a crying girl on the forest floor. A few moments later and he was in route headquarters. He returned Fu's salute and made his way to his office. He spent a few moments making sure nothing urgent required his attention before asking Fu, please find Mai, I have a job for her. Also I need those trap diagrams. Sakura laid on the short stubby grass of the clearing floor and looked up at the forest canopy. Unpleasant thoughts came unbidden. What is everyone going to think? Ninja for a day. What a bad joke. Mom and Dad will have to take out a loan to help me through normal school. I'll be behind all the students my age since I wasted 4 years becoming a ninja. A sudden amusing thought broke her mental tirade. At least I'll pass PE. She barked off an uneasy laugh. Sakura Haruno, PE expert. The amusement abruptly left her and she wondered, what am I going to do? She didn't want anyone to see her. She was filthy and the tears had washed small lines on her face. Sasuke-kun would be disgusted, and Ino would. She didn't know how Ino would react. All she knew was she didn't want anyone to see her. So she stayed in clearing and cursed herself. After all, a terrible person like me deserves to be hungry, right? Melodic laughter cut through the woods. Sakura hated it. Brittle, insane thoughts crossed her mind. They are already lining up to laugh. That's it, I'll join the circus, that way everyone can at least get a laugh. Everyone laugh at Sakura the failure. She suddenly shouted, don't laugh, at the top of her lungs, and fought back another wave of sobs. A girl in her late teens with a bob of orange hair carrying a big wicker basket appeared at the edge of the clearing and said in an apologetic tone, Oh, I'm sorry, did I disturb something? Sakura's rational side took back control and she abruptly jumped to her feet. She bowed her head and quickly apologized. No ma'am, I'm sorry for disturbing you with my outburst. Sakura silently chanted, please go away. Please go away. Don't worry, I think shouting is good for the soul. The redhead gave her a big smile and Sakura wanted to hide. Before Sakura could come up with an excuse to escape, the redhead continued. I was supposed to meet my team out here for lunch, but they got sidetracked and now I have way too much food. Would you like to eat with me? Sakura's stomach gave her away. The girl gave her another reassuring smile, and sat her basket down. But first you need to wash, secret camping technique, hot spring creation. The ground nearby receded and steaming water rushed in to fill the gap. Sakura blurted out, you're a ninja. The girl chuckled and answered, well, the training grounds are off limits to civilians, and I was looking for my team. Sakura blushed. Oh, right, no matter. I am a special Junin and you can call me Mai. Now are you going to wash before the spring gets cold? Sakura reached into the spring and started vigorously scrubbing her hands. She splashed some water on her face and got most of the grime off. Mai handed her a napkin to dry herself with before sitting down beside the newly formed spring. She made a few hand signs and the spring drained before the earth returned to its original position. She shrugged to Sakura, you can't leave such an obvious trail in the field. Mai laid out a truly massive amount of food from her basket and started to pick at the pickled vegetables. Sakura picked up a rice ball and started to nibble on it while she watched Mai. Mai noticed her and said, oh come on, you have to eat more than that or this will go to waste. Sakura felt her cheeks go pink. She stammered, sorry, I'm on a diet. The blush got a little deeper when she suddenly wondered, blushing and now stammering. Who am I, Hinata? Mai burst out laughing and Sakura felt even worse. Mai finally recovered and said, you must be a genin. Ninja don't diet, dear. Eat as much as you can then train to keep a good figure. Mai struck a pose and continued, you don't think I got this great body by dieting, did you? Sakura wasn't sure if she was embarrassed by the older girl showing off her chest or by the teasing. She solved the problem by grabbing more food before Mai tried to convince her. The two of them made great progress, but there was no way they could finish the spread laid out before them. Mai soon gave up and announced, I'm full. Sakura threw in the towel when she saw Mai quit and said, thank you for the meal, Mai-san. So how do you like being a ninja? Sakura looked down and mumbled. Then she looked back up like she was struck by inspiration and asked, hey Mai-san, why did you become a ninja? Mai took a breath. Well, that is a bit of a personal question. Sorry. No, it's okay. But remember, some people won't want to talk about their reasons. Mai looked up at the trees a moment then started, at the orphanage I was always a bit of an outcast because of this hair. Mai started absently fiddling with her bangs and continued. Every week the orphanage would have a visit day, where potential parents would come talk to us. On one visit day, two of the older boys locked me in a broom closet before running to greet the adults like everyone else. Mai chuckled, I remember being so mad. That day I found a part of me that I didn't know existed before. I did. Something in the closet went up in flames. When I was sure I was going to die, an old man that was visiting saved me from the fire. He offered to adopt me soon after. He sounds like a kind person. Mai shook her head. He wasn't always kind, and his training was brutal. But he had this dream that shone through the cracks of his mean exterior. His dearest wish was to protect this village and he would do everything to achieve it. That man is the only parent I will ever know and he has given me everything I have today. My deepest desire and dream is to repay even a fraction of that debt. That's why I will pay with my everything to fulfill his dream. That is my ninja way. A sharp beeping noise cut through the small silence. Mai looked at her wrist and sighed. Well, there goes my lunch break. She packed up the remains of their meal into the wicker basket. She stood and complained, back to the grind. Sakura called out before she could leave, thanks, Mai-san. No problem. When Mai was out of sight, she body flickered to route headquarters. Danzo met her at the entrance. She immediately saluted, Commander. Danzo returned her salute then barked. At ease. Danzo waited for her to relax before continuing. Please report. I have helped inspire the target to choose protecting Kahona as her ideal. Good, I would like you to periodically meet with her to provide reinforcement. Also, your squad would like to know where their delicious home-cooked meal went. That is all. Mai's face didn't betray anything when she acknowledged, "Yes, Captain." Danzo allowed himself a smile before he vanished to training ground 7 in a body flicker. Sakura was waiting in the clearing when Danzo arrived. They locked eyes and Danzo boomed, "Have you come to a decision?" Sakura didn't flinch, "Yes." "What will you do?" "I will be a ninja who protects Kahona." "And what will you do to achieve this ambition?" "Train and become strong." A rare genuine smile crept over Danzo's face. Soon a matching smile appeared on Sakura's. "I will do everything in my power to see you achieve the promises you made today, Sakura Haruno." "Yes, sensei. I read through your academy evaluation while eating lunch today. It described you as unusually proficient at genjutsu." "Is that correct? The only genjutsu I know is disguise, but I performed well during the genjutsu recognition lessons." Typical academy profile. Hail someone who doesn't know a single worthwhile genjutsu as an up-and-coming genjutsu mistress. Danzo thought darkly before deciding to hope the academy made a lucky guess and continue with the planned lesson. "Then this afternoon you will begin learning the genjutsu release technique. Most ninja can counter a genjutsu through 2 methods. The first is to wound yourself and focus on the pain to break the genjutsu." Sakura looked a bit uneasy, so Danzo gave her a small smile before he continued. "This method is not preferred. Would you care to guess why?" "Because you hurt yourself?" "Are you asking or telling?" "Because you hurt yourself, sensei." Danzo nodded. "Yes, but do you know the less obvious reason?" Sakura paused a moment to think but didn't come up with anything. So Danzo answered his own question, "Wounding yourself to break a genjutsu works. Unfortunately everyone knows it works, thus most high-level genjutsu have countermeasures against wounding yourself to break the illusion." Danzo waited for Sakura to nod before continuing the lesson. "The second method of breaking a genjutsu is to stop the flow of chakra within your body, and then suddenly spike your chakra to a high enough level to flush the opponent's chakra from your system. Most experienced ninja can do this without seals, but today you may use a seal to aid you. I recommend the ram seal. Now try it." Sakura formed the ram seal and felt the flow of her chakra network. She focused on it, forming a mental dam that held the chakra back. Sakura broke out into sweat as the chakra slowed and eventually stopped. With a final effort she broke the dam and felt a tremendous surge of chakra snap through her. Danzo blinked in surprise and thought, maybe the academy knows what they are doing after all. What a monster. He recovered himself a moment later and acted as though her success on the first try was normal and barked, "For the remainder of the lesson I will place D-class genjutsu on you and you will attempt to break them." Danzo made a one-handed seal and suddenly vanished. Sakura watched as a shower of leaves flew around her. They were so pretty she just wanted to reach out and touch one. A second later and the ground started to get blurry. Her surroundings twisted in a haze and Sakura couldn't find where her leaf had gone. She fell with a thump and absently wondered, "How did I end up on the ground?" Then everything went black. When she regained consciousness, Danzo was standing where he was before with a blank expression on his face. Sakura abruptly realized she had totally failed to disrupt the genjutsu. She felt a little embarrassed, but met Danzo's gaze firmly and said, "Again." Danzo made the seal and leaves rained in a shower about Sakura. She felt the strong urge to reach out and touch them, they were so pretty. She wanted to touch them, but dimly remembered she shouldn't. She wondered why someone would care if she touched the leaves, but didn't want to be in trouble for touching them. Sakura wiped the sweat off her face and wondered why she felt so funny. Her last conscious thought was, why does the ground look so funny? Sakura's first emotion upon regaining consciousness was a deep and abiding hatred for Danzo and genjutsu in general. A few moments later she managed to rein the hatred back in and asked, "Again?" Sakura looked at the pretty leaves. She wondered why she was so angry when there were so many pretty leaves around. Maybe because she couldn't play in the pretty leaves? A sudden thought struck Sakura like a thunderbolt, genjutsu. She formed the ram seal and totally suppressed the chakra within her. When her own chakra stood still she could feel some strange dark blue chakra inside her, whispering, "Play with the leaves and grow sleepy. They are so pretty. Look at how they dance in the wind. You want to play with the leaves. After playing with the leaves you're so tired. You want to sleep. It's okay to sleep." Sakura spiked her chakra as high as she could and screamed, "Release." Danzo was standing in front where he had started. A small smile spread across his face. Congratulations. He gestured for her to rise. Why am I so tired? Sakura moaned as she stood upright. Danzo's small smile grew a bit wider, but he didn't say anything. Sakura looked at him and asked, "So what now, sensei?" Danzo gestured at two scrolls on the ground near her and he said, "The first of those scrolls details an exercise regimen I would like you to begin on the days I am not training you. The second contains additional information and tips on the genjutsu release technique." Sakura looked at the two scrolls and asked, "So I'm released for the day?" Danzo's grin split his cheeks and Sakura could see a big row of pointy teeth within when he said, "Well, there is one more thing. I'm not Danzo." Danzo's face split apart and a shark jumped from his body at Sakura. She closed her eyes and formed the ram seal. She shouted, "Release," a moment before the shark would rip her apart. When she opened them again, it was night. She was in the clearing and to her great relief neither Danzo nor the shark could be seen. The moonlight coming through the branches of the trees was enough for her to make out the scrolls were still on the ground in front of her. She wondered just how Danzo pulled that off and tucked the scrolls in her pouch before heading home. It was very late when Sakura reached her house. Her mom was waiting in the living room with small frown and a clenched jaw. When she saw Sakura, she stood immediately and exclaimed, "Sakura, I was so worried when you didn't come home. Where have you been this whole time? That instructor didn't hit you again, did he?" Sakura tried to think of a way to explain but came up with nothing, so she just smiled and answered, "No mom, I had a good day." Sasuke met the rest of Team 7 beneath the big shade tree where they gathered every morning. To Sasuke's great surprise, Naruto was already out in the field working through his taijutsu forms and Sakura was asleep beneath the tree. He wondered to which god he should give thanks to. He wouldn't have to enjoy the stupid girl's affections or the idiot's poorly thought out attempts to get her affection. He sat underneath the tree and stoically waited for Danzo to finally retrieve him for his day of private training. Maybe he would finally learn something useful. Danzo entered the clearing with a body flicker moments after Sasuke sat down. Naruto stopped his practice and shouted, "Good morning, sensei," before walking over to the tree. Sasuke wondered why he was so excited a moment before dismissing the question. The idiot was always excited. Sakura was still asleep when Danzo started poking her with his cane. She sleepily mumbled, "Oh Sasuke-kun, don't be so rough." A moment later she realized what she had said and turned beet red before jumping up. Danzo gave her a small smile and said, "It looks like someone was up late last night." Sasuke wondered what was going on when he heard Sakura mumble, "And whose fault is that?" before responding, "Yes, sensei." She looked over at him and said, "Good morning, Sasuke-kun," as though nothing had happened a moment later. Danzo theatrically cleared his throat and began the morning instructions. "Naruto, I have a couple scrolls describing hypothetical situations. Today I would like you to write out responses to them." Danzo looked at Naruto's frown and added, "They are all about trapping a location." Sasuke wondered what was going on with the idiot but dismissed it when Danzo continued. "Sakura, I want you to read through the scrolls one gave you yesterday, then to focus on the exercises described in them." "Sasuke, you are training with me today." Sasuke grunted in confirmation before following Danzo into the woods. A moment later they were in a big clearing. On one side was a big log painted and carved to look like a snake. Sasuke pondered asking about it before Danzo addressed him. "We will begin with a taijutsu spar so I can determine how accurate the academy results are." Sasuke nodded. He had been expecting this since the idiot had rambled on about his private lesson. He would have to impress Danzo, so the man would teach him something worthwhile. He fell into the first form of the Uchiha style while Danzo snaked out his arm towards him. Sasuke slammed his leg towards Danzo in a surprise kick as soon as the man was settled. As soon as the man was occupied, he planted a hand and snapped off the other leg in a high kick. Danzo took a step back to avoid the blow and Sasuke was able to regain his footing. This time Sasuke opened with a sharp left jab before stepping inside the old man's guard. He switched flawlessly to the second Uchiha stance and attempted to use his close range to disrupt the man's footing with a linked kick combination. The old man attempted to step back again and Sasuke assaulted him with a four-step combination the moment he began to move. The first jab was blocked, but that left his elbow unguarded. Sasuke felt a smile cross his face as he swiped his elbow across, then he was abruptly flying. A moment later Sasuke's face was digging a small ditch through the dirt. He spit out a lump of dirt that had gotten into his mouth and looked up angrily at Danzo's emotionless face. Danzo waited for him to sit upright before saying, "Very good. Unlike the other two, you actually have some ability at taijutsu." Sasuke snorted and thought, "Of course I'm better than the idiot and the useless fangirl." Danzo looked at him a moment then said, "That is enough, sit." He waited for Sasuke to sit before asking, "How do you plan to kill Itachi?" Sasuke floundered. He hadn't expected someone to bluntly ask him. He finally blurted out, "I plan to get my Sharingan." Danzo looked at him a moment, waiting for him to continue. When Sasuke didn't, he asked, "And use my Sharingan to become strong and kill him?" Sasuke wondered what his sensei was thinking when suddenly Danzo broke out laughing. Sasuke gave the man a very dirty look and wondered how he could get a useful teacher. Danzo finally recovered enough to ask, "Do you think the Sharingan comes with a magic, kill Itachi, button?" Danzo wasn't fazed by the indignant expression Sasuke was giving him and continued, "At your current rate of progression you will have a 50% chance of surviving a confrontation with Itachi if you live to reach 20. Provided of course that you or he doesn't get wounded or succumb to an illness." Danzo didn't flinch at Sasuke's hateful expression and kept on going. "Boy, do you know what your greatest advantage over Itachi is? My hate." Danzo paused a moment at that mildly disturbing answer before he decided how to respond. A moment later he had to stifle a grin. He would use the boy's hate to lay the foundations for teamwork. He put on a small frown and barked, "What is the greatest advantage a ninja of the leaf has over any missing nin?" Sasuke's eyes glowed with realization. "The village. Yes, as a ninja of the leaf you have a massive infrastructure supporting you. Why would you confront Itachi alone? When you go, bring an army with you. Those two teammates you dismiss as useless? They are the start of that army." Sasuke gave Danzo a doubtful look and grunted. Danzo ignored him and continued the lesson by bending the truth a bit. "Do you think these teams were random? Both of them surpass you in at least one area. Naruto has more chakra than anyone in the annals of the academy, and that's not even touching on his terrifying trap-laying skills. Sakura was capable of controlling her internal chakra flow within minutes of instruction. With proper guidance they will become monsters." Danzo watched as the Uchiha mentally debated what he had been told. The old man decided to dangle a final bit of bait. "With your teammates beside you, your chances of victory over Itachi increases drastically. I suspect that Team 7 will be able to engage Itachi with a 70% chance of victory in 4 years. Remember, by yourself it's a 50% chance of survival, not victory." That obviously decided the Uchiha's internal debate, and Sasuke asked, "What do I need to do?" Danzo broke out into a big smile. "You need to understand your teammates, respect them and make them your comrades. I guarantee that when I am done with you three no one else will be able to stand besides you as an equal besides them." Sasuke nodded and gave Danzo the first genuine, "Yes, sensei," that he had heard since becoming the boy's teacher. Danzo kept his face expressionless despite his successful manipulation and said, "Of course this doesn't mean you get to slack off during personal training." Danzo watched Sasuke nod and let a cruel smile form. It was time to avenge his bento. In a very kindly voice he said, "After lunch we will have an anything goes mock battle, so prepare for hell." Danzo's body flickered away before he could see the small shiver run down Sasuke's spine. Sasuke ate a quick utilitarian lunch before heading back to the practice field. He needed to prepare as much as possible in order to face a Junin in open combat. He spent nearly his entire ninja kit laying traps and then sat in the center of the clearing watching as his watch ticked down the rest of the hour lunch break. Sasuke rose and prepared to defend himself at 5 seconds. At 2 seconds he looked nervously about, and asked himself, "Where is Danzo-sensei?" At 1 second the field exploded as 200 buried paper bombs detonated simultaneously. Sasuke was thrown a dozen feet in the air as he dodged the larger chunks of debris. Danzo emerged from the ruined clearing in time to watch Sasuke hit the ground hard. He idly hoped Sarutobi wasn't watching. He had missed Mai's home-cooked dinner because of that last lecture. Sasuke regained his footing and Danzo barked out, "Ninja Rule 31. Your assumption of safety is always wrong." Sasuke gave him a dirty look and sent a few kunai towards Danzo before charging. Danzo took great joy in abusing earth techniques to dodge the boy's attacks before appearing behind Sasuke and rapping him on the head with his cane. After the fourth or fifth repetition, the boy got tired of being used to knock the dust off Danzo's cane and started holding the range open while throwing fireballs at him. Danzo returned fire with balls of mud that went right through Sasuke's fireballs. Danzo sighed when his watch went off. His happy time would have to end. He looked at a thoroughly filthy Sasuke, and he decided to go out with a bang and shouted, "Kohanahagure secret taijutsu technique. 1000 years of death." He watched Sasuke fly and idly thought, "I wonder if the stick came loose," before he stifled a laugh. The boy might even beat Sarutobi for distance. When he saw Sasuke land, he mumbled one of the fundamental truths of Kohona Ninja. All of the second Hokage's techniques are useful, no exceptions. Before walking over, Sasuke rolled over and gave Danzo the look he had been practicing for his confrontation with Itachi, but sadly Danzo wasn't fazed. Danzo dropped a pair of scrolls on Sasuke's prone form and said, "Inside the first scroll is the tree walking exercise. I expect you to master it and teach it to your teammates before they have their private lessons next week. The second scroll is a D-rank technique, fire style, smokescreen, learn it before your next private lesson." Sasuke managed to moan, "Yes, sensei," before Danzo's body flickered away. Sasuke was worried. He had tried the tree walking exercise the night before. It had not gone as expected. How was he going to teach his teammates if even he couldn't do it? When Sasuke reached Training Ground 7, Sakura and Naruto were already training. He spent a moment wondering, since when has Sakura started training seriously? Probably another attempt to seduce me. He shivered and sat down. Sakura saw him and blurted out, "Morning, Sasuke-kun." Naruto gave him a far less enthusiastic morning. Sasuke sighed and hopped up, intent on explaining the tree walking exercise when he saw Danzo's body flicker into the clearing of the corner of his eye. Naruto and Sakura stopped their exercises and fell into line beside Sasuke. Danzo looked at his genin and smiled like a shark, "Good morning." Sakura started shivering, confusing her teammates, but they responded, "Good morning, Danzo-sensei," in chorus. "Naruto, before we start, can you make a few shadow clones?" The clearing abruptly filled with a dozen grinning blondes. Danzo nodded and produced a bundle of rope from his bag. "Sakura, come here." Team 7 and the clones gave Danzo a variety of horrified expressions. Sakura didn't move until Danzo barked, "Oh come on, I won't bite." Sakura mumbled, "What about turn into a shark?" Just loud enough for Sasuke to wonder what was going on before she moved to stand immediately in front of Danzo. Danzo split the rope into 2 equal lengths, then tossed them to Sakura, "Tie 1 rope to each ankle." As soon as Sakura started, he asked, "Will the real Naruto come over here?" "Give Sakura about 5 feet of space, then tie it to your ankles, and make sure the ropes don't get tangled." Sasuke, "Same thing, then tie off the extra rope." Danzo waited for the genin to finish tying themselves together, then said, "Now that you're ready, run 5 laps around the village perimeter. Use the track that follows the inside of the wall." Danzo watched them start running. It was a bit like watching a train wreck. First Naruto went a little bit too fast and the rope slacked between him and Sakura, while Sasuke sped up before Naruto yanked his feet out from under him. Then Naruto's foot caught on the slacked rope. His trip suddenly yanked the rope to Sakura taunt. She went down hard, face planting on the pavement. Naruto's out-of-control stumble lead him right into her. Finally Sasuke was running too fast to avoid the pile and went head over heels into them. Danzo hid his smirk as he watched them scream at each other. "Naruto. Idiots. Oh come on Sakura-chan, it was Brody's fault. There's no way Sasuke-kun did something so uncool." One of the clones turned to ask Danzo, "Boss is going to get it, isn't he?" Danzo suppressed a chuckle and kept watching. After 4 more cringe-worthy tumbles, Team 7 was out of sight and Danzo turned on the clones. "Alright, I have infiltration practice for 2 of you." 12 blondes shouted, "Really?" in unison. Danzo suppressed a wince at the noise level but admired the enthusiasm. He reworded what he was going to say so it sounded more exciting and continued, "Yes, I want 2 of you to infiltrate an area under surveillance and gather information from monitored sources." 2 scrolls suddenly appeared in his hand. "Here are the details of your cover identities and the target sources. Who wants the assignment?" One impromptu game of rock paper scissors later, Danzo's two volunteers excitedly shouted, "Danzo-sensei, where are we going to infiltrate? Anbu headquarters? The Hokage Tower?" Danzo decided he might have played the practice up a bit too much and said, those seem a bit high level. "We can do it. Boss is going to be the greatest Hokage ever after all." "Well, future Hokage-sama, read your scrolls to find out." The pair ripped open their scrolls and suddenly lost their smiles before complaining, "The library," in unison. They grumbled a few moments but didn't protest. Danzo gave them a cold look until they started diligently studying the scrolls, and then turned to the remaining scrolls. Danzo turned to the remaining clones and instructed, "Now I want 3 of you to practice throwing kunai and shuriken. 3 more of you practice the Academy Taijutsu forms. The rest practice leaf balancing. Remember, the goal is better control, not the ability to hold a leaf on your forehead." The clones gave him a confused look that abruptly disappeared when he barked, "Get to it." Danzo helped the infiltration pair with their disguises, then spent the next 2 hours dispensing advice to the 10 remaining clones. Team 7 finally made it to the village gate before taking another huge spill to the guards' amusement. When they untangled themselves, Naruto screamed in frustration and sat down. Sakura promptly tore into him, "Naruto, get up. You can slack off on your own time. Don't drag me and Sasuke-kun into it." To Sasuke's great surprise, Naruto put his hand on his chin and ignored Sakura. He was about to add his own complaints when Naruto snapped his fingers and shouted, "There's a trick, we have got to be missing the trick to this." Sakura huffed and said, "Yeah, teamwork. That's why it's called a teamwork exercise, idiot." She looked at Sasuke only to see his eyes narrow then widen in realization. Idiot has a point. Hey. Sakura ignored Naruto's rant about how he would be the greatest Hokage ever and asked, "But what?" She unconsciously mimicked Naruto's thinking pose and analyzed the problem. "Alright, we keep getting tangled because we're all moving at different speeds. So we should all move at the same time." "No, we all have different stride lengths, have to fix that too." Sakura finally exclaimed, "That's it." Naruto and Sasuke abruptly stopped arguing and gave her a funny look. She explained, "We need to do 2 things. Move at the same speed and the same time. So we need to all step the exact same difference at the same time." "Wow, Sakura-chan, you're awesome." Sakura ignored Naruto and watched Sasuke. She slumped when he suddenly said, "Counting." Naruto looked over and asked Sasuke, "Huh?" Sasuke suppressed a sigh and explained, "We count to 10 and take a step on each number. Make your steps exactly a meter." "Wow, Sasuke-kun, you're awesome." Sasuke ignored Sakura's compliment and stood up. A moment later they were slowly jogging as Naruto and Sasuke shouted off numbers. All 3 members of Team 7 suddenly stopped when they heard someone shout, "What are you idiots doing?" Naruto was the first to respond, "Kiba, what the hell? Whatever it is, it looks stupid." Kiba continued, Training is important, Kiba." Hinata stuttered, "Well, we got our first mission today." Kiba bragged, "Wow, what are you doing?" Sakura asked. We're catching a cat," Shino answered. Naruto fell down laughing and Sasuke smirked, "That seems appropriate for a dog." "Why you? That's enough, Kiba." "But Kurenai-sensei." Naruto's face twisted into a foxy smirk as the opportunity to prank Danzo presented itself. He hoped his information was accurate and said, "Oh, you're Kurenai-san? You know of me?" Naruto nodded. "Danzo-sensei says you are the 2nd best genjutsu user in Kohona." Kurenai's face tightened into a small frown before she finally admitted, "Hokage-sama is very good at genjutsu." "Oh, then I guess you are 3rd best then." Naruto's prankster spirit held firm against the copious amount of killing intent Kurenai was giving off. When she asked, "Oh," in a kindly voice that fooled absolutely no one, his smile got even wider. "Danzo-sensei says the best genjutsu master in Kohona is someone called Might Guy. Kiba, we have a mission." Kurenai yanked her student along behind as she stalked down the street. Team 7 watched them leave, until finally Sasuke asked, "What was that about?" Naruto just kept smirking until Sasuke said, "Right. Let's get back to our jog." Kensuke Ida and Shinji Ikari had a secret they couldn't tell anyone else. They were shadow clones of Naruto Uzumaki. They took a deep breath and entered the Kohona Public Library. The librarian at the desk coughed angrily when they walked by. Both clones froze and wondered, does she know? I need to see your ids. Shinji bowed his head and stuttered, sorry, ma'am, while he fished through his pockets. He finally found the fake ID he had made using the picture Danzo-sensei had provided in his copy of Naruto's ninja ID card. He desperately hoped she wouldn't look at the card closely and presented it to her. Kensuke flashed his a moment later. She didn't even blink. She waved them ahead and went back to her book. Shinji blurted out, thank you ma'am, before rushing after Kensuke. Sucking up to the librarian, Akari? Sorry. Did your scroll say respond to every question with, sorry? A big grin spread across Shinji's face. Yup, you're taking this way too seriously. We should, it's important training for the boss. See that's what I mean. Shinji gave Kensuke a dirty look and accused, you're just mad I'm better at this than you. You got an easier profile. Mine said giggle manically at the sight of ninja weaponry. Who would actually do that on an infiltration mission? I don't know, all ninja are predisposed towards ignoring fangirls and fanboys. Just look at the broody one. He's so good at ignoring fangirls that one time I disguised myself as Naruto to prank him. He didn't even notice me when I walked into his apartment. Is that what it is? I just thought he played for the other team. That's the other possibility. Kensuke didn't really want to contemplate the broody one's UAL orientation, so quickly changed the subject. So what book are you supposed to read? Great Clans of Kahona and Their Abilities. Shinji muttered. Ouch, sounds boring. I got History of the First Great War, a tactical perspective. Kensuke theatrically sighed, I'm off. Before vanishing into the stacks. Shinji shrugged and walked to the history section. The book was a huge leather-bound affair with small print and stuffy wording. Shinji sighed again and pulled out a blank scroll and a brush. He would write himself notes on each clan's abilities, then memorize the notes before he dispelled. He was almost done when a purple-haired kunoichi walked into the library. He looked up, then immediately wished he hadn't. The woman was wearing the most provocative outfit he had ever seen. When she noticed his blush, she cupped her breast and said, like what you see, brat. Shinji stammered, sorry. She looked at him like a delicious snack and asked, what do you have to be sorry about? Shinji tried a different tactic, who are you? I'm Kahona's wise snake mistress, the great and wonderful and beautiful Anko. When she started grandstanding, Shinji knew he was screwed. She leaned over Shinji's shoulder and whispered into his ear, I don't bite much. Anko. Bad. Another kunoichi shouted from the aisle. I'm not one of your dogs, Hana. I know the brothers aren't nearly as rude. Anko smashed Shinji's head into her cleavage and protested, he doesn't mind, look. Shinji went bright red and started stuttering incomprehensibly. Did you forget your promise with Nai-chan? No. So you're giving up Dango? Anko looked horrified as Hana walked away. She gave Shinji a final squeeze, then chased after Hana shouting, wait up, free Dango. Shinji smirked, best infiltration mission ever. Danzo heard his team before he saw them round the bend. They were shouting off a count to move by. He gave them a blank look as they came to a stop in front of him. The remaining clones of Naruto were clearly wondering what Team 7 was doing. He waited a moment more, then said, that was a clever solution. Tell me who came up with it? Sakura answered first. Sasuke-kun did. He only came up with it cause I recognized the problem. Naruto, you didn't help at all. Stop trying to take credit for Sasuke-kun's hard work. Danzo suppressed a sigh. They had obviously missed the teamwork part of the teamwork exercise. He decided to make a point. Quiet. The three bickering genin fell silent immediately. When you report something, there is no room for personal glory. You report the facts as they are and let the person you report to draw their own conclusions. If you gave such a shameful report to Hokage-sama, he would send you to Ibiki to get the truth. Now tell me exactly what occurred. Sakura spoke up first. After falling several times, Naruto stopped running. He told us there must be a trick to the exercise. I realized we have to move at the same speed and time. Sasuke-kun figured out the method for us to do so. That is why I gave Sasuke the credit. If I want your opinions, I will ask for them. Let me reiterate, in a mission report you give the facts. Danzo watched without expression as Sakura flinched. You three solved the exercise with a clever trick. That is something admirable, you are ninja after all, but you seem to have completely missed the fact it was a teamwork exercise. When you turn on each other and try to hog glory, you are failing your teammates. Ninja who fail their teammates die. Do you want to die? No, Danzo-sensei. Team 7 respond in unison. Danzo forced a small smile onto his face. Now untie yourselves and sit down. We are going to discuss what it means to be a team and the roles you will fulfill in this team. Danzo waited for Team 7 to sit before he eased himself onto the ground. Naruto. Why did the first Hokage decide to deploy ninjas in three-man teams? Before the First Great War, larger formations were common. But during the early battles he realized that large formations lacked mobility and were extremely vulnerable to wide-area jutsu and large-scale summons. The tipping point was when Madara Uchiha led 2 members of his clan to slaughter 3 platoons of stone ninja in their own camp using the wide-area fire-earth-air combination technique Garden of Blooming Hellfire, crushing stones opening offensive before it got started. He chose the 3-man squad since it was the smallest unit, which allowed for all 3 major specializations. Danzo suppressed a small chuckle as he watched Sakura gape at Naruto. She finally recovered enough to ask, Danzo-sensei, I thought the second Hokage led us during the First Great War. Danzo pushed away the memories of his sensei and responded, he did. Madara and the first had their famous fight at the Valley of the End less than 6 months after the war started, before it had reached its true ferocity. But we are getting off topic. What are the 3 major specializations? Sakura answered, support, melee and range. Very good, now what role do each of you think you fulfill in this team? Sasuke frowned, then pointed at Naruto and said, melee. He turned to Sakura and said, support. That leaves me at range. For a moment Danzo was surprised the boy had reached the same conclusion as him, but pushed it aside and asked, what is your reasoning? Sasuke looked irritated at having to explain but did anyway. Naruto doesn't know any ranged jutsu and is terrible with thrown weapons. He lacks the knowledge that characterizes the support role. Therefore he can only be placed at melee. Sakura isn't much better with ranged weaponry, but she's smart and is even worse than Naruto at taijutsu, so she should be the support. That leaves me at range. Naruto looked ready to protest and Sakura looked stunned at her crush, though she was smart. Danzo decided to intervene before the team devolved into bickering again. I agree, though you have overlooked the reasons Naruto is superior to you in the melee role. Sasuke suddenly looked like he swallowed a lemon. Danzo gave him a small frown before continuing. Naruto has the greatest stamina of you 3 and Shadow Clone gives him greater staying power than you Sasuke. Though his taijutsu is terrible. Danzo forced his copy of the third smile onto his face and asked, now do you 3 agree with these roles? Danzo-sensei, what specialization was Old Man Hokage? Danzo suppressed a chuckle before answering, Hokage-sama was a close-ranged specialist that used a staff in combat. But most higher-level ninja can fulfill any role. Naruto frowned a moment then suddenly shouted, I'll do it and become the greatest close-ranged specialist, then the greatest Hokage ever. Danzo resisted the urge to beat Naruto with his walking stick while Sakura and Sasuke nodded that they were fine with those roles. Well then we have one piece of business left before I dismiss you for lunch. Danzo produced 3 scrolls from his jacket. These are sealing scrolls, used to carry items. Inside these scrolls are 4 sets of the uniforms you will be required to wear when completing missions. Uniforms? Sakura blurted out. Danzo knew exactly what she was thinking and decided to go ahead and stomp on her hope before she got carried away. They are unfortunately not stylish. They are however durable and actually provide protection. The only modification you can make to them is adding a clan crest to the shoulder. He ignored the dirty looks his genin were giving him and continued before they could think up any more protests. Now before I forget, I need to show you how to use the scrolls. These particular scrolls are called quick release type. To release the item stored in each section you have to channel a small amount of chakra into the circle. He demonstrated and a uniform appeared in a small poof of smoke. On top of the uniform were 3 kunai with seals engraved into them. He lifted one of the kunai and continued. The quick release type is designed for people with very little sealing experience, thus these kunai. To seal an item you need to place the kunai in a triangle around the item, then connect them with a line of blood channeling a bit of chakra. He sliced his finger and drew 3 quick lines to make a triangle of blood around the uniform and channeled a small bit of chakra, sealing the uniform in another small poof of smoke. Danzo made sure each member of the team could release and reseal items before he dismissed them for lunch. Naruto arrived back from lunch before his teammates, so he sat down beside the big shade tree and watched his clones work. They all gave him dirty looks as they continued their exercises. One of the clones balancing a leaf suddenly smiled and turned to another and said, "Boss should come show us how it's done, right?" A couple others caught on and said, "Yeah, come on boss." Naruto was about to go show his clones how it was done when Sasuke interrupted him. "Hey stupid, how do you know so much about the First Great War?" Naruto ignored the insult and answered, "Danzo-sensei made me read a book on the tactics of the First War. It was actually interesting, unlike all that crap we had to read in the academy." Sasuke nodded and then asked, "Hey stupid, you can read?" Danzo's body flickered into the clearing before Naruto could demonstrate exactly what he thought of that comment. Sakura arrived a moment later, panting. Danzo waited for her to catch her breath then said, "This afternoon you will be practicing your roles in group combat versus an experienced Junin, whenever he shows up." "When is he supposed to be here, Danzo-sensei?" Danzo smirked at Sakura and replied, "Around 10 o'clock. Danzo-sensei, it's 1 o'clock. I know, he should be here soon." A minute later a white-haired Junin body flickered into the clearing. He waited a moment as though he expected them to complain before waving, "Hi." Danzo gestured to the Junin, "This is Junin Kakashi. You will call him captain when you serve underneath him. He will be accompanying you on most of your missions, including the one you will accomplish tomorrow. Your goal for the afternoon is to not die, good luck." Team 7 stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language until the ground exploded underneath them. When the smoke cleared, Danzo was pleased to see that the trio had vanished into the woods. Sasuke was dragging Sakura through the woods as Naruto ran close behind. In a sudden burst of inspiration, Naruto called out, "Shadow clone," and 6 duplicates of Naruto appeared around him. A moment later his clones used the disguise technique and 2 copies of Team 7 rushed to other parts of the wood. Sasuke halted a moment later and Naruto asked, "So what's the plan?" Sakura still looked a bit stunned from the explosion but answered anyway, "Hide, the instructions were, not die." "Well, if we're not going to fight, why don't we just disguise ourselves as civilians and go to the market or something?" Kakashi's voice called out from the branches above, "A fair plan. Unfortunately it's useless now that I know about it." Sakura screamed, "Genjutsu!" a moment before a hand snaked out of the ground and grabbed Sasuke, dragging him under. Kakashi emerged from the ground a moment later and mocked, "So what is plan B?" A trio of kunai from the bushes behind him answered his question. Kakashi flipped open his orange book with one hand and caught the kunai with the other hand. A surprise attack from behind, not bad. It might have worked if your clones weren't so loud. The clones just screamed and charged Kakashi. They lasted moments before they were brutally cut down by the kunai Kakashi had appropriated. He flipped behind Naruto and Sakura right as they turned to run. "Oh, were you going to abandon your comrade to his earthy fate?" Kakashi's face turned hard. "I hate people like that." Kakashi charged the pair, intending to beat them within an inch of their lives when he heard someone shout, "Fire style!" Great fireball above him. He barely rolled out of the way in time to avoid immolation. Sakura, Naruto and the imprisoned Sasuke weren't so lucky and caught the brunt of the fireball, only to vanish in puffs of smoke. Kakashi had time to wonder, "Shadow clone?" before another trio of Narutos jumped at him from the treetops. He met them halfway, kicking 2 into trees, and using the third as a springboard to where Team 7 was hiding. He congratulated, "You guys are better than you look. But now it's over." Naruto and Sasuke charged him while Sakura threw another trio of kunai in between them. He caught their attacks and fell backwards to dodge the kunai. He channeled chakra into his feet and hung upside down from the branch a moment before throwing Naruto and Sasuke to the clearing below. Kakashi's smirk vanished when the boys exploded into clouds of smoke. The clone disguised as Sakura smirked, "Trickery is a ninja's best weapon." Before it charged him, Kakashi put a kunai through its throat before it even got close and mentally congratulated them. "So the trio that jumped me were the real ones using the disguise technique, clever." To Kakashi's great disappointment, Danzo was waiting for him when he found the group again. As soon as he caught the blonde one in the bright orange jumpsuit, Danzo started clapping and shouted, "Good exercise." Danzo turned to Kakashi and said, "Thank you for your help, Hatake-san. I intend to spend the rest of the afternoon going over the fight with them." Remember, meet them outside the mission hall at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Unless you want to stay? No thank you. Kakashi's body flickered away and resolved to spend some quality time with his copy of Icha Icha before making the brats wait extra long tomorrow morning. Danzo took the battered members of Team 7 back to the main clearing and sat down. Now tell me 3 things you did well and 3 things you can improve on. Naruto answered first, we need a better way to talk. Whispering during a fight is hard, and if Kakashi had heard us it would have been useless. Danzo nodded and replied, I suggest you find a copy of the Anbu sign language and start practicing it. It's not perfect and most experienced ninja can read it, but it is a lot better than trying to whisper. You can buy one of those instruction booklets at Anbu headquarters. Sasuke answered next, we used clone and disguise techniques well, but we were a long way from matching the captain in combat power. Using the clones like that was a clever trick. And Kakashi would be able to kill you all without trying fighting him head-on was never the point of this exercise. Sakura spoke next, well, we realized that the point of the exercise was to escape him. And I realized that I can't contribute other than throwing kunai. Listening to instructions is important, congratulations for recognizing that. And don't worry about your contributions, the support role isn't covered very well in the academy. Over the next few weeks in your private lessons we will cover basic illusions, rudimentary medical techniques and supplementary seals. Danzo waited for the group to add anything before saying, you need one more thing you did well. After a moment of awkward silence Danzo decided to give a sappy answer Sarutobi would enjoy. You 3 performed as a team for the first time. That is something worthwhile. Danzo gave his clone of Sarutobi's smile when the members of Team 7 shouted, yes, Danzo-sensei. Before I dismiss you, a few things about how this unit will handle missions. For each mission I am going to pick one of you 3 to be the team leader. Unless it is a life or death situation, the team leader will be in charge of the squad. So I expect you all to obey orders given by Sakura tomorrow. Well, that is all I plan to teach today. Meet your captain outside of the mission hall at 10 o'clock. The members of Team 7 gave him several strange looks until Sakura finally asked, Danzo-sensei, didn't you tell the captain to meet us at 8 o'clock? Why yes I did. Danzo's body flickered away before they could protest. Sasuke wondered how he was going to get the other members of Team 7 to learn tree climbing before deciding on a course of action he knew he would regret. Hey, there is something I want to teach you guys. Naruto gave him an uninterested look and asked, so? Naruto. Sasuke-kun just wants to help us be better ninja. Sasuke sighed and said, Naruto, if you learn this by your next private lesson I will buy you and Sakura ramen. Really? Sasuke nodded and wondered just what horror he had unleashed when Naruto continued, then I'll master whatever you're teaching in an instant. Believe it, the uniform Danzo had given to Naruto lay in a pile on the floor where he had unsealed it. Naruto was staring at it with great trepidation, there was no orange. He wondered how much trouble he would be in if he just wore his patented jacket anyway, only to be assaulted by a sudden image of Danzo's creepy smile. He shuddered and started putting the uniform on. The black shirt and pants were made of some rugged material Naruto didn't recognize, and the pants had far too many pockets on it. The green jacket was just as bad. It was stiff and really heavy and it looked like one of the Chunin vests with sleeves and a hood tacked on. Naruto decided that at least the gauntlets were cool looking even if they were green. Naruto spent another moment adjusting his forehead protector before running to the mission hall. He didn't want to be the last one there if Captain Kakashi decided to show up earlier than Danzo-sensei said he would. Naruto barely recognized Sakura without her red dress. He thought she looked older with the heavy green jacket hanging unbuttoned and her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Naruto shot her a big smile and shouted, "Wow, Sakura-chan, you look great." "Thanks, Naruto, you look like a ninja." "Thanks." There was an awkward pause before she asked, "Have you seen Sasuke-kun?" Naruto huffed, "No." They sat together on the bench outside the mission hall waiting for Sasuke in silence. When Sakura saw him she stood and shouted, "You look great, Sasuke-kun." Naruto muttered, "We all look the same," too quietly for her to hear. Sasuke ignored Sakura and asked, "So where is our captain?" "He's not here yet." "Good, Danzo-sensei saved us a lot of trouble then." As soon as Sasuke finished speaking, Kakashi's body flickered into the street and asked in a smug voice, "Did you wait long?" The members of Team 7 responded as one, "No, Captain." Sakura spent a moment wondering why the captain looked so irritated before asking, Captain, should we go ahead and get a mission scroll? Kakashi's smile returned. Yep, I have just the mission in mind. He headed into the mission hall and gestured for the team to follow him. The line wasn't very long. Most of the genin teams had sewn up earlier to avoid the more onerous missions. Team 8 walked in just as they reached the mission desk. Kakashi had a big smile on his face when he told the lady at the desk, Team 7 would like to request the Retrieve Tora mission. The members of Team 7 felt a sudden feeling of dread that was abruptly dispelled when the lady replied, Oh, you're Danzo-sama's team. He came by here earlier today to request a specific mission for you. Team 7 wondered why Kakashi's smile looked so painful while she searched through the stack of scrolls marked D on her desk and muttered, Now where did I put it? Ah, here it is. Rake the leaves at the Uchiha estate. She handed one scrolls to Kakashi with a big smile and another to Sakura before adding, He said I was supposed to give this to you Haruno-san, good luck on your first day as team leader. Before Sakura could thank the lady, Kiba interrupted, You guys must really suck if he made Forehead your team leader. Kurenai smacked him in the back of the head and asked, What are you doing here, Kakashi? Danzo has me watching his brats for the day. Just think, if you passed a team you could experience this joy every day. Ah, all the inspiration I need to make my test even harder next year. Kakashi's smile returned before he added, Maybe I'll make the next group bring me Anko's panties? Kurenai's face flushed and she pushed past Kakashi before demanding, Team 8 reporting for a mission. The lady working the desk grimly informed them, The only remaining D class is Retrieve Tora, I wish you luck. Kiba's eyes widened in silent horror before he suddenly fell to his knees and shouted, No. His cries of frustration only got louder when he saw the members of Team 7 sporting 3 matching vindictive smiles. The smiles turned into outright laughter when Akamaru covered his eyes with his paws and tried to hide in Kiba's jacket. Hinata consoled Kiba as Team 7 left the mission hall in a hail of laughter. So what is in the second scroll, Sakura-chan? I'll read it when we get there, Naruto. So we're cleaning Brody's home? Some mission. Naruto, don't insult. Sasuke interrupted, I don't live there. Sakura and Naruto fell quiet a moment before Naruto finally asked, So where do you live and what is the Uchiha district? Sasuke grunted and fell silent. Sakura finally answered, Naruto, didn't you pay attention in the academy? The Uchiha district is where the Uchiha clan lived before. She fell awkwardly silent under Sasuke's glare. Naruto was sadly oblivious. Sakura, I had the worst grades at the academy, remember? So why don't you live there, Brody? After a pause Sasuke muttered, Bad memories. Sakura wondered how to console Sasuke and Naruto wondered what his two teammates were worked up about. So with his usual tact Naruto ignored Sasuke's glares and asked, So what happened? Kakashi scolded, Naruto, that is. Sasuke interrupted, 5 years ago, a certain man killed every member of the Uchiha clan except me so he could gauge his strength. Naruto and Sakura winced when Sasuke muttered, I will kill him, into the awkward silence. Sakura cheered, We're here, in a pitiful attempt to lighten the mood. The Uchiha district had suffered in the 5 years since it was abandoned despite the number of D ranks the council funded to maintain it. The buildings were maintained well enough but the whole place felt hollow, like a effigy of past glories constructed for a fair. Kakashi paused at the gate and said, You need to rake the leaves into stacks. Come get me before you start burning them. I will be waiting at the gate. What do you plan to do, Captain? Kakashi pulled out a little orange book and smiled at them. I will be reading. The walk to the center of the district before Naruto asked, So what is on the other scroll, Sakura-chan? Sakura shook herself and pulled the scroll open. After a brief glance she read aloud, If you have received the mission I requested you are in for a lot of hard boring work. I decided to include the instructions for the E-rank technique wind style. Gentle breeze in an effort to make your task a bit more interesting. I suggest you spend the time to learn it properly. Although the technique itself is useless in a fight, it is one of the easiest breath techniques in Kahona's library. Learning it will make mastering techniques such as Sasuke-kun's Great Fireball or my own Great Breakthrough much easier. Good luck on your first mission. She passed the scroll to Sasuke and rapidly signed Tiger, Ox, Rabbit and shouted Wind style, Gentle breeze. She exhaled a weak breeze that pushed the leaves in front of her a dozen feet before dying out. Wow, Sakura-chan, you're great. Let me try. Naruto signed and shouted wind style, gentle breeze. He spat out a gust that sent Sasuke and Sakura flying into the side of a building. Sakura shirked, Naruto you, only to abruptly stop when she saw Naruto collapse and start coughing uncontrollably. She watched with bile fascination a moment before she asked, Naruto, are you alright? Sasuke wondered just how much chakra Naruto had used to overpower the technique by such a ridiculous extent before saying, he overpowered the technique without using chakra to protect his throat. He saw the adoring look Sakura was giving him and decided to add, I did the same thing the first time I tried the great fireball technique. I burnt my throat so badly I couldn't speak for a week. Naruto shot Sasuke a dirty look and ran through the signs again, wind style, gentle breeze. Sasuke and Sakura barely had time to dodge out of the way before another massive gust rocked the street. He gave them a big thumbs up and shouted, I got the whole street, in a rather hoarse voice. Sakura had to suppress a giggle at how funny Naruto sounded before she gave him a placating wave and said, good job. But try to not send us into any more buildings, okay Naruto? Sasuke brushed the dust off his jacket and stared at Naruto for a moment wondering, just how much chakra does he have? I could probably create one gust that size and he doesn't even look winded after two. Maybe Danzo-sensei has a point about him being useful against Itachi. Sasuke resolved to follow Danzo's advice and use his teammates to help kill Itachi. He let Naruto wheeze out another line about how he would be the greatest Hokage ever before asking Sakura, so what do you want us to do, team leader-san? For a moment Sakura looked like an animal in a trap before shaking herself. She started thinking aloud, well, Naruto can clear a whole street, but he just sends leaves everywhere, so we get him to push everything towards the central square. Sasuke, you and I can try to work what's in the square into piles and Naruto, can you teach us how to make those solid clones? They would be really useful. Naruto scratched his head and apologized, sorry Danzo-sensei says I can't teach anyone shadow clone, but I can make a couple for you to order around. That works too, will you be okay making the clones also? That has to be a lot of chakra. Naruto tried to shout, I'll be fine. Believe it, but was so hoarse it out as an almost incomprehensible croak. Sakura snickered for a moment before clapping her hands and announcing, let's get to it. Naruto made a hand seal she didn't recognize and shouted, shadow clone. A dozen grinning copies of the blonde appeared around them. The real Naruto instructed them, you all need to obey Sakura-chan while I'm gone. Don't screw this up, before running down one of the streets. Moments later a cloud of leaves shot into the main square and a stiff wind assaulted them. Sakura turned to the clones and said, you all need to start cleaning out the corners where we can't use the wind technique. The clones snapped off a salute and shouted, yes, Sakura-chan, in a chorus of hoarse voices. She turned to Sasuke and said, well, Naruto might be annoying but at least he's useful at menial labor. She didn't see one of the clones freeze a moment before it continued working. Sasuke frowned a moment and thought, if they keep fighting with each other then they will be less helpful when we kill Itachi. I need to make them get along if this is going to work. Even better if I can get Sakura to focus her affections on Naruto, then she will stop bugging me about going on a date, but how? A small smile crossed Sasuke's face and he decided to shamelessly play up the similarities between his childhood and Naruto's. He sent a cloud of leaves flying with the wind technique to cover for his pause before starting, be nicer to Naruto, he's going to be our Hokage after all. Sakura scoffed, you don't really believe that, do you? I respect his ambition. He is very similar to me. Sakura stared at Sasuke, obviously entranced, before asking, what do you mean? Sasuke frowned at her and wondered how the smartest girl in their class could be so dense before he told her, we're both orphans. He is probably the only person in our class that can understand me, so I will never doubt his ambition. Sakura looked like she wanted to protest that she understood his pain but had enough sense to keep her mouth shut under his glare. He kept the glare up and watched her wilt for a moment before lying through his teeth, I would never date someone who was rude to him. Sasuke left her gaping like a fish to start clearing the other side of the main courtyard while congratulating himself on a successful opening move in his plot to hook up Sakura and Naruto. Naruto appeared from the last of the streets a moment later, gasping for breath. He looked so exhausted no one protested when sat down against one of the buildings lining the central courtyard and waited for them to finish organizing the rest of the leaves. A few minutes later they had the leaves organized into a couple piles and Sakura called out, "Naruto, you can dismiss the clones now." Sasuke walked over to where Naruto was sitting when all of the clones called out, "Okay," and vanished into clouds of smoke. Sasuke was extremely confused when Naruto looked at him with a big smile stretching across his face. Sasuke offered Naruto a hand up which Naruto took with an almost tearful, "Thank you." Sasuke pushed Naruto's somewhat creepy behavior from his thoughts and called out to Sakura, "What now, team leader San?" Sakura fumbled a moment before saying, "Captain Kakashi said to come get him when we got the leaves into piles." Team 7 walked to the Uchiha district gate where Kakashi sat in the shade occasionally giggling while reading his orange book. When he saw them he called out, "Done already? I was just getting where Sophia-chan is about to get hammered by Roxanne when her sister decides to come onto the stage and..." Sakura went beet red and desperately interrupted before Kakashi could scar her forever, "We don't want to hear about your perverted book. Then you don't want to hear about how Sophia-chan is joined by the great Kunoichi Taki after she saves Taki-chan from Killik-san's long hard pole?" Sakura's mouth worked back and forth but she couldn't think of anything to say, so Naruto came to her rescue. "Captain, that's really interesting but we need to finish our mission." Kakashi muttered, "No respect for art," before asking, "What happened to your voice?" Sasuke answered, "Overpowered wind technique." Kakashi quirked an eyebrow before he followed them into the central courtyard. "Alright, I want you to ignite the piles with a fire technique." Sasuke rapidly made the signs for Grand Fireball only to stop when Kakashi shouted, "Not that one." Kakashi rolled his eyes in irritation before signing Horse, Tiger, Ram camping technique, fire ignition. He spat a little line of fire that quickly set the leaves ablaze. Fire ignition is one of the basic camping techniques you are expected to master. Now each of you ignite one of the remaining piles so we can finish. Sasuke and Sakura looked nervously at each other before Sakura finally spoke up. Naruto, make sure that nothing flammable is in your path, like buildings or me." Their caution was warranted a moment later when Naruto sent a 20-foot gout of flame down one of the streets. Sakura and Sasuke spent a moment chuckling uneasily before igniting their piles. The dry leaves burned quickly, leaving small piles of smoldering ash. Sakura watched her own pile of embers die out completely, then turned to ask Kakashi, "Captain, should we sweep the piles up?" "If you want. I'm going to go ahead and report this as a successful first mission. Danzo-sama told me that you three are to report to Anbu headquarters tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Team 7 walked Kakashi leave before Sakura finally asked, "I wonder why he wants us to go to Anbu headquarters." The other two members of the squad shrugged and the three stood together silently until Sakura finally asked, "So what now? Tree climbing? Tree climbing. Tree climbing. Yay. Come on Sakura, my precious ramen is at stake." Danzo sat on the bench waiting for his team outside of the Anbu headquarters building, wondering if he should go forwards with his plans. The three members of Team 7 showed up together. They had obviously met earlier in the day. Danzo spent a moment wondering if it was because the Uchiha was teaching them tree climbing before rising from his seat. All three had decided to wear the uniform he had provided to the meeting. After a moment more observing them, he abruptly decided his original plan didn't require modifications and called out, "Good morning." They fell into line in front of him and responded as one, "Good morning, Danzo-sensei." It was time to teach Team 7 about emotions. He started his lecture, "Today I have a pair of very important lessons you need to learn before you advance any further as a ninja." The three looked at him attentively. Danzo knew every word he was about to say would be reported to the third Hokage. He couldn't say emotions were a hindering to a ninja without losing his position as Team 7's sensei, so he planned around it. His students were not rude. He spent a moment mentally reciting the line he had based his life off of. "You are the leaves basking in the sun, I am the roots that grow in the dark." And committed himself. The only indulgence he would allow his opinions was subtly framing his example so not feeling any emotion came out superior to a superabundance of emotion. That was all he would do. He would use the eye to enforce the lesson itself, not his opinion, no matter how correct his opinion might be. He spent a moment preparing himself for the first planned use of Shisui's eye on Team 7 and then began his speech. The first Hokage once said. Danzo paused to look at Team 7 and activated Shisui's Mangekyo Eye. To ninja, emotions are a weapon. Danzo winced as the eye shut down from the strain of implanting the sentence and continued. Some interpret that statement as ninja should not feel emotion. Others insist the first meant our emotions make us stronger. In practice, neither understanding is correct. A true master understands emotions but is not controlled by them. Imagine you are in a battle with another ninja and he taunts you with being an orphan. To Danzo's surprise, Sakura flinched. He spent a moment filing her reaction for later analysis before continuing. A ninja not in control of his emotions becomes enraged and attacks his opponent with all his strength. He never notices the trap he's being lured into. When his opponent triggers the trap, our emotional ninja dies a failure. Now let's examine the ninja who suppresses his emotion. His opponent taunts him about being an orphan and he ignores it. The fight continues without exposing the opponent's trap. But the master ninja hears the taunt and wonders what his opponent is trying to gain. He realizes the trap his opponent is laying and plays along, lulling his opponent into a false sense of security. The opponent never realizes what went wrong when the master suddenly turns his own traps against his. To become a master ninja, you must first become a master of your own emotions. If an opponent thinks you are cowed in fear, he will never expect the kunai in the back. This is one of the most important lessons I can teach, and it plays into today's other lesson. Please follow me inside. Danzo mentally calculated how long it would take Shisui's eye to recover and resolved to make the remainder of the lesson last that long before smiling at the unmasked Anbu member sitting at the front desk like a secretary. Danzo Shimura taking Team 7 to visit Torture and Interrogation's little show. The fake secretary and Danzo spent a moment enjoying the nervous expressions flickering across Team 7's face. He thought they did a fairly good job of controlling their emotions for a first try and turned back to the fake secretary. She smiled back at him and said, "Afternoon Danzo-sama, please sign in." The members of Team 7 were quiet as they walked Anbu headquarters' gray maze-like halls for the first time. Danzo called out to them. Anbu is the sword of the Hokage and reports only to him. But since the loss of the Uchiha, they have become more. The Anbu now serve as the police force of Kahona and handle the incarceration and punishment of criminals. Danzo opened the door labeled Torture and Interrogation Division and continued, "This includes executions." Ibiki met them in the hallway and Danzo snapped off a salute. Danzo Shimura bringing Team 7 to witness the execution of prisoner number 1036. Ibiki returned Danzo's salute and gave the members of Team 7 a cold smile before replying, "You are just in time for the show, Danzo-san. I was wondering if you had changed your mind." Danzo was acutely aware that his reply to Ibiki's barb would be on the Hokage's desk by that night, but he couldn't do anything but stay the course. So he calmly met Ibiki's eyes and replied, "I am resolved. This is the best course for Team 7's development." Ibiki stared at him a moment and then nodded. Danzo ruthlessly suppressed a sigh of relief. The inevitable report to the Hokage would put him in the most favorable light possible. "The viewing room is this way. Remember, you cannot interfere in the proceedings in any way." Ibiki pushed open a door into a sparsely furnished room with gray walls and a big viewing window. Sakura gasped in shock, "Mizuki-sensei?" Naruto looked through the glass to see that the stay at Torture and Interrogation had not been good for the former instructor. His hands were bloody pulp that could never hold a weapon again, and the jagged lines carved into his face weren't much better. He was crying piteously in pain and occasionally jerking against his shackles. Naruto turned to Sakura and wondered if she was going to be okay. Sasuke found his voice first. "What did he do?" Danzo gave Naruto a meaningful look and then returned his gaze to Mizuki. Naruto sighed and then replied, "He was a traitor." Sakura managed to wrench her gaze away from Mizuki and look at Naruto. He winced. She looked like she was about to cry. He wanted to hold her hand and tell her it would be okay, but he knew Danzo would come down on him hard if he faltered in his explanation. "Did you guys wonder how I got this protector?" Sakura stuttered, "You said special circumstances." Then she gave him a sudden horrified look and snapped another glance at Mizuki. "When I failed the academy graduation test, Mizuki told me there was another way to become a genin. As a special test, I had to infiltrate Old Man Hokage's mansion and steal a special scroll and learn a single technique from it. The Scroll of Seals is a collection techniques that the Hokage have made forbidden for various reasons, and Old Man Hokage guards it himself. I was successful in distracting the old man and stole the scroll before fleeing to the woods. I quickly started studying the scroll, eager to master a technique before Mizuki found me. Iruka-sensei found me a couple hours later. I thought I had passed the test. I was so proud when I told him I had learned the shadow clone. Danzo watched as Sasuke's eyes lit up at that bit of information, and he resolved to talk to the boy about exactly why shadow clone was dangerous. Naruto and Sakura were too distraught to notice. Iruka-sensei thought I was trying to prank the village in revenge for failing the graduation exam. When I told him that Mizuki had said I could graduate if I learned a skill from the Scroll of Seals, he realized Mizuki was a traitor. Unfortunately, Mizuki attacked us both moments later. Iruka-sensei. He took a couple kunai for me in the opening exchange. Naruto took a deep breath and forced his voice to calm before he continued. Then Iruka-sensei took another really bad hit because I was too slow in running. Iruka-sensei couldn't fight Mizuki cause I was there, so I ran as hard as I could. Both Iruka and Mizuki set off in pursuit moments later. Iruka transformed into a copy of me and fooled Mizuki. Once Mizuki discovered the ruse, he decided to taunt Iruka-sensei a bit about me before he killed him. Iruka-sensei came to my defense. Naruto gave his teammates a sad smile and finished. He said I was one of his excellent students. He acknowledged me. He's probably the first person besides Old Man Hokage who has really acknowledged me. Mizuki spit on all that. I turned around and faced him. I put all of my power into Shadow Clone and managed to defeat Mizuki. Iruka-sensei gave me his own forehead protector. Naruto tapped his forehead and continued, this forehead protector. That is how I became a genin. Sakura gave Naruto a confused and desperate look. She muttered to no one in particular, he used to give me sweets when the other kids made fun of my forehead. Sasuke got over their former instructor being a traitor fairly quickly. Mainly because he had something more important to worry about, like how this was going to affect his plans to get Naruto and Sakura to act like teammates. He sent an irritated glare to Danzo and pushed Sakura into Naruto. She squeaked when she hit Naruto's chest. Sasuke spent a moment to appreciate the cute reaction before gesturing for Naruto to hug her. Luckily for Sasuke, Naruto was too upset with his own remembrances to protest and wrapped his arms around her without complaint. Danzo watched the scene and wondered how his team dynamic had changed so much in the last day. Sasuke's actions made no sense to the old man, but they were headed in an interesting direction, so Danzo let them play it out. Sakura was still sobbing against Naruto's chest when Ibiki entered Mizuki's holding cell with a frog-masked Anbu. Ibiki's deep voice boomed out, "Chunin instructor Mizuki." Sakura turned to face her former instructor. Naruto held her hand. Sasuke walked over and took her other hand before Ibiki could continue. "You stand accused of terrible crimes. To the crime of theft of a national treasure, the Scroll of Seals, you are judged. Guilty. To the crime of assaulting a fellow leaf ninja, Chunin instructor Iruka, you are judged. Guilty. To the crime of revealing a S-class secret to someone not party to the secret, Academy student Uzumaki, you are judged. Guilty." Naruto never noticed Sasuke's speculative glance. Ibiki took a deep breath and continued. "For your crimes the punishment is a traitor's death." Ibiki turned to the Anbu that accompanied him and said, "Frog, you may administer the punishment." Frog nodded once to Ibiki and unsheathed his tanto. He moved in front of Mizuki and paused a moment to say something quietly before brutally ramming the blade into Mizuki's chest. Frog twisted the tanto and watched as his eyes glazed over before withdrawing the blade and wiping it on the remains of Mizuki's jacket. Frog nodded again and Ibiki boomed out, "Justice has been done." Before they both left Mizuki hanging from his shackles, Danzo looked at his students and said, "They will destroy the body so our enemies can learn nothing from his corpse." He paused to prepare himself, then acted out the closing act of his little show. "The other lesson I wish to teach today is simple. As ninja, our purpose is to kill. Whether executing a traitor or cutting down a foe in the field, everyone who calls themselves a ninja must be able to kill their foes without hesitation. When you put on those forehead protectors, you swore a solemn oath. I am the sword of my nation, I will strike down our foes. I am the shield of our nation, I will defend its people. A ninja that cannot kill is not a sword or shield, they are a weight that will bring others down with them. When you take the life of a foe, you are not a monster, you are a ninja fulfilling their solemn oath. Never forget that. He marched in front of his 3 genin and demanded, now, swear that oath again in front of me with full knowledge of what it entails. Become ninja of the leaf in truth. 3 unsteady voices replied, I am then. Danzo boomed, say it with conviction. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura looked at him with resolve and firmly said, I am the sword of my nation, I will strike down our foes. I am the shield of our nation, I will defend its people. I accept your oaths. Danzo stared at them a moment and wondered again if this was the correct course before announcing, ninja must kill. That is why before I will let this team go on a mission that involves combat, you will each serve as an executioner for a traitor or criminal that the Hokage has sentenced to death. You are dismissed, I suggest you discuss this with one another. Danzo was still in the observation room when the Anbu reached him. He suppressed a grin. Sarutobi had received word too late. Shisui's eye had already recovered. He hoped that the upcoming discussion would not require him to use the eye. He suspected that if he had to use it against Sarutobi, his chance of success was less than 40%. If he gambled on those odds and failed, the village would suffer. He followed the Anbu into the Hokage's office. Sarutobi was waiting for him behind a desk suspiciously clear of paperwork. When he saw Danzo enter, he took a large drag on his pipe before dismissing the Anbu. As soon as the silence seals were up, he roared, What in the hell do you think you were doing, Shimura? The same thing the second did for us. Sarutobi visibly reined himself in and reminded himself that Danzo was not someone he could intimidate with a bit of anger. We were at war. A bandit's blade is just as lethal as a soldier's. They're just children. Danzo let a little bit of his anger show and turned Sarutobi's own words against him, then stripped them of their ranks. Children have no place in a ninja force. The will of fire states every true Kahona shinobi must love, believe, cherish and fight for the village's sake. For a moment Sarutobi looked like a very old man, then he gave Danzo a crooked smile and asked, Do you still believe in that will we inherited from sensei? Danzo suppressed a smirk. He had dodged any punishment without having to gamble on the eye. His expression betrayed nothing to Sarutobi when he honestly replied, I will pass the will down to those 3 and I will fight for my village. Danzo sat in one of the Hokage Tower's larger meeting rooms, struggling to understand Naruto's nigh incomprehensible handwriting while waiting on the other Junin with a rookie genin team. Naruto had submitted a rather interesting analysis of the limitations of the body flicker and substitution techniques, including the reasons they were of limited application in combat and how to overcome those limitations. Unfortunately, it was all written in a chick scrawl. Danzo was convinced that if they could train the rest of the Leaf Ninja to read Naruto's writing, then they would gain a totally secure method of communication. For frustrating minutes later, the Hokage entered the room and Danzo gladly closed the scroll before making a mental note to forward it to Root's cipher and decryption department. Danzo stood with the other 2 Junin and saluted the Hokage, Sir. At ease. Sarutobi waited for Danzo and the others to return to their seats before he continued. Since this is the first quarterly report and you have not had your genin teams the entire quarter, I want a general overview of your team's status before you begin to report on specific members. Who would like to go first? Asuma and Kurenai both started to speak, then looked at each other and blushed. Danzo allowed himself an eye roll at the lovers' moment and waited for them to figure out who would report first. Finally Asuma began. Junin Asuma. Sarutobi reporting for Team 10. Team 10 has completed 17 D-ranked missions and 1 C-ranked mission since its formation. Like their parents, the team is best suited for a capture and interrogation role, and I am training them in that direction. As expected from the second generation of the Ino Shikacho trio, the team possesses notable teamwork. Asuma looked at his father to see if the overview was sufficient before continuing. Genin Shikamaru Nara defaults into the leadership role in combat situations, though he is unwilling to be assertive outside of combat. I am leaving most of his training to his clan and instead focusing on helping him develop mentally. I circumspectly tested his IQ and he is a genius. Sarutobi looked at his son sharply and asked, So were the academy results incorrect? Asuma shook his head, I doubt it. He probably thought it was troublesome and didn't put very much effort into academy assignments. That kid is like an old man. He likes to take things slowly. Danzo wondered if that was a nice way to call a student lazy before asking, so what is his projected development? He has mastered the shadow bind to Yoshino-san's standards and she currently has him working on mastering the shadow imitation. Otherwise she is focusing on increasing his chakra capacity by making him capture deer for the clan pharmaceuticals. I intend to enroll him in the Anbu investigations course the next time a session begins if he meets the requirements, or you will waive them, Hokage-sama. Danzo resisted a snort. It was obvious which of the two would occur. Even with their checkered past, Sarutobi wouldn't refuse his son something like that. I will consider it. What of the other members of your team? Genin Choji Akamichi is the team's sole heavy combatant. Physically he is a monster. His raw strength is Chunin level easily. Unfortunately he lacks the confidence to use it effectively, so his taijutsu is mediocre for a genin. He can currently perform his clan's multi-size technique and calorie control technique, but according to his father he is a long way from achieving mastery of either. When the team confronted a pair of Yakuza toughs during our C-rank protection mission, he utilized one of his family's food pills to augment his strength. Aren't those extremely dangerous? Kurenai interrupted. Danzo kept his face calm but wondered, what were you doing during this? I have been assured by Shuza-san that although the food pills are dangerous, the first pill won't cause any lasting harm. According to him, the pill get their bad reputation because consuming the third food pill is tantamount to opening the 8 gates. I intend to let Choji to continue training in his clan's techniques. I am trying to boost his confidence and am giving him supplementary taijutsu lessons. As you know, my third genin is Ino Yamanaka. She is suited for reconnaissance and espionage. She is extremely effective at getting information out of people, though I would recommend against formal interrogation training at the moment. Among my 3 genin she is best with the standard academy ninjutsu, but her taijutsu is lacking. Her chakra pool is larger than Shikamaru's but smaller than Choji's. During the fight with Yakuza she used her clan's mind-body switch technique to sow confusion, but left her body vulnerable. Her teammates were forced to divert attention between protecting her and the client. Her father is helping her learn her clan's techniques and her mother is giving her an education in basic poisons and antidotes. I am offering to help her improve her taijutsu, but she is not currently interested in additional physical training. Asuma looked over at Danzo and added, "Oh, and she has a crush on your prize student Danzo-sama." I see. Kurenai smiled and asked, I guess I'm next? After a nod from Sarutobi she continued, Junin Sensei Kurenai Yuhi reporting for Team 8. Team 8 has completed 26 D-ranked missions since its creation. The team is best suited for reconnaissance and tracking. The team recently was asked to help in the second stage of the Hunter Ninja selection trials as one of the pursuit forces and were able to successfully eliminate 12 of the Hunter Ninja candidates from the running. The team shows an acceptable degree of teamwork for a group that has only been operating together for 2.5 months. They also display an unexpected degree of proficiency at taijutsu. Danzo wondered if Team 8's impressive display in the Hunter Ninja trials was the result of the team's unexpected prowess or of slipping standards. He made a mental note to have someone at Internal Affairs look into the matter before returning his attention to Kurenai's speech. She exhibits an almost crippling lack of confidence. Her taijutsu is, as expected of a Haigua, above average. When she spars against me she preforms at the level expected of a Chunin, but when against her teammates she falls to about mid-genin proficiency. She also displays an unexpected knowledge of herbal remedies and medicine. Due to her position as a clan heiress she has an exceptional knowledge of etiquette and ceremony. Her father has assured me he will supervise her education in the gentle fist style and has asked me to make time for his instruction. I am focusing my instruction on improving her confidence and ability to work with the rest of the team. Because of her Byakugan, she does not need instruction in breaking genjutsu, so I am focusing on increasing her teammates' proficiency in breaking genjutsu before advancing all 3 of them to more advanced instruction. Genin Kiba Inuzuka is at times distressingly brash and overconfident, but listens to his teammates when they speak up. His taijutsu when working with his partner, Akumaru, is exceptional. He has yet to lose a taijutsu spar with either of his teammates. In fact, I would match him up favorably against most new Chunin in a taijutsu-only spar. He has an exceptional amount of chakra for a genin and the worst chakra control I have ever seen, though I hear one of your students is worse, Danzo-sama. I haven't heard that. Danzo watched Kurenai flush a bit before continuing. He is learning collaboration techniques from his clan, but according to Sume-san, Akamaru is currently too young to learn most of the more powerful clan techniques. I am working on his attitude and trying to get him to think before he jumps into a situation that he can't handle, but it is a slow effort. His poor control makes the genjutsu release technique extremely difficult for him, and I am spending a great deal of time trying to bring his skill with it up to par. Unlike the other two, genin Shino Aburame is a bit of a mystery. When I received his profile from the academy, I almost complained of negligence. They had him listed within 2 spots of dead middle in every category. Every teacher's comment in his file can be summed up as, "He is quiet." I'm glad I didn't complain, because in these last 2 months I haven't done much better. He responds politely when spoken to and volunteers nothing. So he is like his father. I don't think that is a fair comparison. While he shares many traits with the rest of the clan, such as his love for observing insects, I doubt he acts in such an unusual manner because of Aburame logic. I don't know why, but Shino is paranoid. He marks everyone he meets with his bugs and hides his skills whenever possible. I know his mother has been training him in the Aburame clan style since he was 6, but he only uses the academy style in taijutsu spars. Kurenai realized how far off of topic they had drifted and returned to addressing her genin skills. Shino may be my strongest genin. The level of taijutsu he has displayed is mid genin, but I believe his actual level is somewhere between high genin and low chunin. According to his father, Shino can use several of the clan techniques, including the insect clone. In mock combat, his use of his clan's bug techniques shows a level of tactics and planning rarely seen in genin. Since he possesses the necessary degree of chakra control, I plan to start giving him basic instruction in genjutsu once Kiba masters the release technique. I hope that by learning some genjutsu he will be able to overcome a few of the standard Aburame weaknesses. Otherwise, I am leaving his instruction to his mother and father, since he will not allow me to gather enough information about his current level to give him meaningful instruction in other areas. Since his supposed paranoia is not negatively impacting the team, I have no plans to address it. Thank you, Kurenai-san. Sarutobi took a breath before asking. And Team 7? Junin Sensei Danzo Shimura reporting for Team 7. Team 7 has completed 9 D-rank missions. The team is best suited for heavy combat. At its formation, Team 7 possessed a notable lack of teamwork. He shot Sarutobi a glance and continued. In my opinion, they would have failed Sensei's bell test. This is no longer the case. Danzo turned to look at the other 2 Junin senseis and continued. Though their teamwork isn't at the level of the famous trio or even exceptional, they work together well enough. I have dedicated most of the past 2.5 months to training certain members up to the level they should have possessed when they graduated from the academy. Genin Sakura Haruno was a fangirl, somehow labeled the top kunoichi of her class, which makes me grieve for today's youth. After 2.5 months of exercise, her physical condition is comparable to a middle-of-the-class academy student. He looked at Sarutobi in time to catch the old man signing. "What are you doing?" He signed back, before covering the pause by saying, "Physically your grandson would beat her, though on a purely technical level her taijutsu is probably mid-genin. She knows no worthwhile ninjutsu. However, genjutsu is a bright spot. I have managed to teach her the hell viewing technique and the false surroundings technique. In addition, Kakashi taught her the mist servant technique. She has also learned a bit of medicine. I am currently working on improving her chakra capacity, another area where she is currently inferior to your grandson Hokage-sama. When she has the chakra capacity to support it, I will begin instruction in more advanced genjutsu and maybe a few defensive ninjutsu. When the hospital begins another course on medical jutsu, I intend to enroll her." Genin Naruto Uzumaki is dead last of his class. It showed. I am proud to say that he has grown up a bit over the past 2 months, though his teammates still haven't gotten him to burn that jumpsuit. His physical strength is in line with a genin, but his taijutsu isn't. In fact, I'm fairly sure he skipped several of the more important academy taijutsu lessons, like the ones where you learn how to punch and kick. Danzo watched the other Junin try to decide if he was making a joke or not before continuing. Since joining Team 7, his taijutsu has improved markedly. Now he can probably beat your grandson in a fair fight. Of course any genin would trounce him. When he graduated, his control could be charitably described as horrible. After months of hard work, he has improved it to merely bad, but he still can't perform the basic clone technique. Danzo suppressed a smile at the dirty looks he was getting and said, "For the foreseeable future I will continue to help him improve his taijutsu and control until they reach the standards I expect from a genin. At that point I will help him learn a few supplementary ninjutsu." Danzo made a mental note of Kurenai and Asuma's relieved expressions when he started. Genin Sasuke Uchiha was the top rookie of his class and continues to demonstrate why he deserved that title. His taijutsu is solidly low chunin. When I received him, his chakra capacity was chunin level. He had enough to perform the grand fireball technique. However, his large capacity came with the standard control issues, so we have mainly worked on the basic chakra control exercises. He has completed tree climbing and water walking, though I wouldn't say he has mastered either. He has not unlocked his Sharingan and lacks the control required for genjutsu without it, so after teaching him the release technique, that subject has been largely left alone. For the immediate future I intend to help him continue improving his control. Kakashi plans to help him learn a few other ninjutsu to improve his library, but he has been having trouble teaching techniques he copied in the first place. I assume that problem will disappear when Sasuke unlocks his own Sharingan. Once I am satisfied by Sasuke's control, I intend to start him on elemental manipulation. He paused a moment in thought, then added, "I know that if he has lightning, Kakashi wants to teach him the Chidori." Asuma protested, "You intended to teach a genin elemental manipulation?" Danzo kept the annoyance off his face and answered, "Yes." Sarutobi broke the awkward silence. "Thank you for your time. Shimura-san, will you stay behind a moment please?" Danzo watched Asuma and Kurenai file from the room and wondered if they had drawn the conclusions he wanted them to. Sarutobi was kind enough to wait for them to leave completely before asking, "What was that about?" "If my team continues to progress at this rate, they will be ready for the Chunin exams should they want to compete. No point in tipping off the competition. So you lied to my Junin so your team would gain an advantage and in competition they might or might not be in?" Danzo put on his "I'm innocent" and said, "Lied? I'm not sure why, but his taijutsu really is that bad, and he is improving slower than I expected. Worse, I might have been overly generous when describing his control." Sarutobi did not look amused. Danzo finally admitted, "I just might have forgot to mention a few things he excels in." "So how much have they really improved?" Danzo pulled out the written assignment he had given to Naruto and handed it to Sarutobi. He pulled open the scroll and spent a couple minutes frowning at the scroll before saying, "You taught them cryptography?" Danzo ruthlessly suppressed a chuckle. His handwriting is that bad. He frowned a moment, then made a mental leap. "When I start Sakura on seals, I'm going to include Naruto in the lessons. He doesn't have the math background for it, but he might have inherited the Uzumaki talent, and even if he has no aptitude for it, his handwriting will improve." "Oh, you're going to teach the two genin you made out to be worthless something as complicated as sealing without offering it to your prized student, the Uchiha?" He joked. When it didn't elicit a response, he continued, "Have your worries about his mental stability panned out?" "Actually, that's something I'm still confused by. After their first mission, he totally reversed his stance on his teammates. I know he's still obsessed with killing his brother, but somehow that obsession has helped the team stabilize. Also, watching him try to set up Sakura and Naruto as a couple is one of the funniest things I have ever had the pleasure of watching." Sarutobi coughed and returned to the original subject, "So how is Naruto?" Danzo quirked an eyebrow. "Oh, so you don't want to hear about Sakura?" Sarutobi gave Danzo an irritated look, so he answered, "I have been working on covering the holes in his academy education. He is up to where he actually should be in history and math now. As I mentioned, his control is still bad. This is mitigated by the fact his reserves are at least high Junin. Kakashi thinks that Naruto has about twice as much chakra as him. Naruto can waste chakra every time he uses a technique and he will still last hours longer than his teammates. He is also getting smarter about how he uses his techniques. That nigh incomprehensible scroll in your hands is his answer to a question I posed in the team's last group meeting. I asked the team to examine the faults of the substitution technique and how to overcome them. From the small patches of his answer that I can read, he drew a rather interesting parallel with the body flicker technique. According to Naruto, body flicker is widely considered a showman's technique that is useless in a fight because it takes 3 seconds to form the chakra required for a jump. But then someone came along and figured out how to cut that time down to a little over a second. Suddenly you have the combat juggernaut Shisui of the body flicker. To Naruto, substitution is the same sort of technique. Currently, substitution is almost useless in a fight because you must prepare something like a log to substitute with in advance. Naruto's solution was simple: just make something during the fight. Sarutobi's face lit up in realization. Shadow clone. When Naruto masters the reduced seal version of substitution, no genin will ever be able to touch him. All that with terrible taijutsu and bad control. He is working hard at improving all of his faults. Danzo paused a moment, then said, Sakura's solution was almost as interesting as Naruto's. She followed the same logic as him but came to an entirely different conclusion. She decided, why not just substitute with something that is already there? Danzo grinned and delivered a little bombshell. She managed to substitute herself with a pocket of air. What? Sarutobi looked at him with undisguised shock. I will have a copy of her solution passed along to you, but don't get your hopes up. No one has been able to duplicate her trick yet. And she is not going to demonstrate it again until she can do it without giving herself chakra exhaustion. Sarutobi paused a moment to digest that, then asked, I am curious, what do you actually plan for your team? If they complete their 10th mission to my satisfaction, then I will recommend them for their first C-rank mission. Are they ready for that? Everyone but Naruto can water walk and he will have it down in another week or two. Working together they are a match for any Chunin, and they all fulfilled my other requirement. Sarutobi's irritated frown was back. Naruto was inconsolable for days after that. Better here than in the field. You heard your son's report. His genin were not willing to kill their foes, and they were driven to the point where they had to use something dangerous to capture a pair of Yakuza. Team 10 should have won that fight easily. Sarutobi changed the subject. How does Team 7 stack up against the other two teams? Well, I don't know that much. I know you have rude reporting on the other teams. Why would I do that? I just had internal affairs give me a copy of the relevant files. Sarutobi fought back a smile and Danzo continued, it wouldn't be a contest. They are without a doubt the strongest team of their generation. So what D rank do you plan to send them on tomorrow? Danzo's face twisted in an evil grin. I do believe that it is time for Madame Shinji's cat to make another daring escape. You didn't. Ah, the joys of running route. Kakashi has not returned from his mission yet, so I will be pretending to supervise you on today's mission. Danzo pulled out a red D-rank scroll and said, we have been asked to retrieve Madame Shinji's lost cat, Tora. He can be identified by the red ribbon on his right ear. Sasuke, you are the team leader for this mission. He paused a moment then added, dismissed. Yes, Danzo-sensei. Danzo gave his team a small smile and sat down on the bench. According to Sai, Tora was in fine form. He would have time to grade those essays on the implications of different types of terrain. Naruto waited for Danzo to be out of earshot before asking, so what's the plan? Sasuke shrugged then said, not a clue. Do you know anything about this cat? Sakura looked like she wanted to say something then sighed and admitted, nope. Naruto just shook his head. We could just do what we do every time. Have stupid throw shadow clones at the problem until it goes away? Jerk. Naruto tried to scowl at Sasuke, but despite his efforts one side of his lip kept ticking upwards into a smile. For a moment his teammates stared at him. Then Sakura bust out laughing. A moment later Sasuke and Naruto joined in. When they recovered, Sasuke instructed, 10 pairs of 2, have them sweep the village from the north. Meanwhile the 3 of us will go to the market district and ask around. Naruto spent a moment carefully metering his chakra, trying to minimize the amount he wasted, before shouting shadow clone. 20 copies of Naruto appeared in puffs of smoke around him. At Naruto's urging the clones lined up and he gave them a few additional instructions. Alright, when you find the cat one of you dismisses after you grab it. The other gets to hold onto it until we come pick it up and deliver it to Madame Shinji ourselves. You guys might as well relax, since we're going to find it in moments. Believe it. Sasuke watched the Naruto clones run off towards the northern edge of the village for a moment then said, did your clone just try to one-up us? Naruto shrugged. Want to take them up on that offer, Sakura-chan? She equivocated, Sasuke-kun is the team leader. Well, what do you say, oh great team leader? Sasuke frowned a moment and thought, if Danzo-sensei catches us screwing around on a mission, he might not let us go on a C rank, and I can't put up with D ranks any longer. Somehow he always catches us too. How does he do that? Sasuke forced himself back onto the subject at hand before he got too far onto a tangent and said, we can grab something quick if we do it while asking about the cat. Naruto's eyes lit up, but Sakura interrupted him before he could open his mouth, no ramen. Sakura-chan, that's heresy. Sasuke decided, dango it is. Before Naruto began to extol the various benefits of ramen, they made it to the market district before Naruto asked, so who's buying? He spent fraction of a second looking at his teammates' expressions before shouting, not it. Sakura gave Sasuke a set of puppy dog eyes and said, will you do it, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke resisted the urge to rub his temples and said, why don't we play rock paper scissors for it instead? He might not have his Sharingan, but he could still read hand motions better than the other two members of Team 7. All three members of Team 7 chanted, rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and signed while trying to read their opponents. Naruto's hand reached the center a fraction of a second before he could finish changing his rock into scissors, leaving him the loser against his Sakura and Sasuke's last-second decision to both choose paper. He hung his head in defeat and asked, so what do you want? Sakura handed him a few bills and said, chestnut please. Sasuke paid him and said, I want soy, remember to ask the owner about the cat. Naruto sighed, he wouldn't be able to find chestnut-flavored dango at one of the street vendors. He would have to go visit that specialty shop at the end of the street. The shop was small but well furnished with small booths separated by paper hangings. He ignored the seating and walked over to the takeout counter. The owner of the shop saw him come in and met him at the counter a second later. The owner stared at him a moment before finally asking in a gruff voice, what will you have? Naruto was about to ask about the runaway cat when he saw a flash of purple hair that blasted the question from his mind and made his eyes snap wide open in shock. That crazy exhibitionist lady who had slammed his clone into her cleavage was sitting, fully clothed, calmly eating dango in a pretty pink and white kimono. He stuttered, Anko? One order of red bean paste coming up. That snapped Naruto out of his shock. He quickly corrected the owner with a gesture to a pretty purple-haired kunoichi. No, I meant that Anko. Oh, Mitarashi-san, what about her? He waved his arms wildly as his powers of speech failed him. She's, kimono. Oh that, her tea ceremony club meets today. He looked at the line building up and gave Naruto an irritated look before asking, so what will you have? Naruto answered, 2 chestnut and a toasted soy please. As he tried to understand the implications of Anko being in a tea ceremony club. By the time he collected his order, Naruto had realized that he knew almost nothing about the purple-haired kunoichi and resolved not to form opinions off of a single meeting. He frowned, Danzo-sensei would be disappointed in me. The sudden burst of memories from a dismissed clone forced him to shift attentions. He ran to where Sasuke and Sakura were talking to a street vendor and said, they found it. Naruto and Sasuke started running, leaving Sakura behind when she paused to bow before the vendor and said, thank you ma'am, before chasing after her teammates. When Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura were about to turn into the ally, they heard Naruto's clone shout in pain. The members of Team 7 all abruptly stopped. A second later, a brown cat with a red ribbon sprinted from the ally. A Naruto clone stumbled out a second later and said, that isn't a cat, it's a demon, before vanishing into a cloud of smoke. Sasuke spent a moment wondering, how did a cat beat a ninja? Then suddenly realized their quarry was getting away and shouted, after it. Sasuke and Sakura started sprinting after the cat. A moment later, Naruto pushed away the sudden phantom pains assaulting his face and joined the hunt. Sasuke reached the cat first and made a lunging grab. Tora jumped in time to slap Sasuke in the face with his bushy tail. That proved to be a mistake on the cat's part. Sakura managed to grab a hold of the tail before Tora could withdraw it. Sakura squeezed hard and yanked the cat back when it tried to jump away. The cat made a pained yelp and turned on Sakura. For the first time since Danzo had decided to give them mandatory uniforms, Sakura was completely and unabashedly grateful for the heavy green jacket. Tora's claws couldn't pierce the heavy green fabric, so he sent an angry swipe at her face. Sakura dropped Tora and grabbed where the little demon had scratched her cheek. Tora tried to dive through Sakura's legs while she was occupied, but Naruto was waiting on the other side. Tora performed an abrupt about-face to dodge the blonde and ran right into Sasuke's waiting arms. Sakura glared at the cat Sasuke was holding tightly while Naruto rubbed antiseptic into her wound. She managed to suppress the urge to twist Tora's little neck and thought, "That little demon made me look bad to Sasuke-kun. I have to make it pay." When Naruto finished taping on a small piece of gauze, she rapidly formed a series of hand signs and whispered, "Demonic illusion. Hell viewing." She watched with satisfaction as Tora's body went stiff. When the little beast started twitching and malicious grin spread over her face. Sasuke and Naruto stared at their teammate's smile before independently coming to the same conclusion, scary. Naruto recovered first. "Sakura-chan, did you really just put that cat in a genjutsu?" That grin didn't change. Yes, I did." Sasuke looked down at the twitching bundle of fur in his hand, then back up at his unexpectedly vindictive teammate before finally saying, "You know you have to cancel this." When he saw Sakura was about to make the release gesture, he interrupted before she could finish, "But we need to find a cat carrier first." Naruto woke up with a big grin splattered across his face. It was time for his first real mission. He dressed quickly while mumbling a list of things he would need for the mission: ramen, ninja wire, explosive tags. Maybe a few of those paint tags Danzo sensei made us practice with. I was saving those for a prank though. Oh well, I'll bring them anyway, and I definitely need ramen, shuriken, kunai, and a couple of those folding shuriken that Sasuke gave to me. Naruto had found about half the items on his mental list when a loud knock on his door interrupted the search. "Who is it?" Sakura's voice called back. "Kahona Sanitation Department, come to condemn your room." "Morning, Sakura-chan. Open up, stupid." Naruto unlocked the door and Sakura walked into his messy apartment. She sat on the edge of his bed and said, "I came to make sure you didn't pack a bunch of stupid stuff." Naruto shot her an excited smile. "That's so sweet, Sakura-chan." Sakura blushed and replied, "I can't let you drag me and Sasuke-kun down because you are too stupid to pack correctly." Naruto pulled out the last of his emergency ramen supply and sat it on top the stack of ninja supplies. He pointed and said, "I think I did fairly well." Sakura suppressed a sigh. "So where are your spare clothes? What about your weapon maintenance kit or your first aid kit? You didn't even bring a waterproof tarp." Sakura suppressed a giggle as Naruto dramatically hung his head in front of her. "Come on, I'll help you pack properly." She looked around and said, "Where is that sealing scroll that Danzo sensei gave you?" "Oh yeah, I forgot about it." Naruto started digging junk out from underneath his bed until he pulled the scroll out with a shout of, "Yes." They quickly separated the supplies into a pile of spare ninja supplies, a pile of ramen and explosive tags, and a pile of everything else. Naruto shot Sakura a curious glance at the organization and she replied, "Remember Danzo sensei said we can't seal consumables into these scrolls since they're cheap. And it's bad policy to seal explosive tags inside a scroll. They can accidentally trigger when you unseal them." Naruto sealed most of the supplies away and slipped the scroll into a waterproof case before packing his bag. He stuffed the first aid kit into the big pocket on the leg opposite of his kunai holster, then made sure he had the correct amount of shuriken and kunai immediately available. Dying because all of your kunai were sealed away in your backpack would be humiliating. He smiled contently at Sakura and threw on the ugly green jacket Danzo had made the team's mandatory uniform. After he strapped on his arm guards and his forehead protector, he spent a moment looking in the mirror, then grabbed an old sock to try to polish out some of the scuffs in the armor. He stopped when Sakura started giggling. "I never thought I would see you preen in the mirror like Ino." "Hey, I'm not that bad. And Danzo sensei says looking good when you meet clients is important. We are the face of our village. If we don't look professional, then no one will take the village seriously." Sakura looked at her own arm guards, which she had polished until they shone a deep green, and decided to not push the issue. "You're right. So do you think Captain Kakashi will be on time since it's our first C rank? If I thought he was going to meet us on time, I would have gotten up an hour ago." I still think we should go with Sasuke-kun's plan and make the scarecrow wait on us. It would be funny to tell him about how we got lost on the road of life. Yeah, right up until he reported us to Danzo sensei. That man has no sense of humor. You're just mad he knew the shoes were your fault. Though I must admit, I'm curious, how did you get Kurenai-san to put that genjutsu on him? Trade secret. I'm still mad you and Sasuke ruined it by asking why his shoes were squeaking. How were we supposed to know he couldn't hear it? You should have trusted in your teammates more. Naruto threw on his pack and opened the door for Sakura before following her out and locking it behind them. So what kind of mission do you think we will get? I hope we get a patrol mission. I want to see some of the other cities. I'm hoping for an escort mission. I heard that Team 10 was assigned to protect a poor rice merchant and ended up overthrowing a Yakuza group that tried to strong-arm their client. I doubt that. There is no way the mission office would assign something as dangerous as that to a bunch of rookie genin. More likely their sensei beat a couple of Yakuza up at a bar and they tried to get revenge later only to miserably fail. Sakura saw their third teammate and shouted, "Good morning, Sasuke-kun." Morning. Where is the scarecrow? Haven't seen him yet. While Team 7 waited on the bench outside the mission hall for their captain to surface, they checked each other's pack and traded theories on what they would have to do on their first C-rank mission. They all froze when a voice called out behind them. Well, I think you all will receive the C-rank mission of babysitting Ibiki's 4-year-old daughter. It used to be a D-rank assignment, but the last group of genin that got tricked into playing with her. Kakashi shook his head then added, that poor dog was never the same. Sakura recovered first. Captain, does Ibiki even have a daughter? Nah, I was just screwing with you. Though he did marry a cute Nara girl last year. Kakashi took in the three disbelieving expressions and changed the subject. Let's go get your mission. He lead them into the mission hall then added, oh, Danzo-san says you are the team leader for this one Naruto. I won't intervene unless I have to. Before Naruto and Kakashi could get in line, the Chunin running the mission desk called out to them. Since this is Team 7's first C-rank, Hokage-sama wants to see you personally. Head over to his office for your scroll. Naruto shrugged and said, guess Danzo-sensei told them ahead of time. The door to the Hokage's office at the mission hall was left open for Team 7. The Hokage smiled at them when Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke filled into the room. Naruto shouted, hey old man, the lady running the desk said we had to come to you for our mission. Kakashi sighed at the disrespect and was about to scold Naruto when the third cut him off. Yes Naruto, I want to make sure you are really ready for this mission. C-rank missions have killed promising young ninja in the past. Why should I give a C rank to your team? Naruto glanced at his teammates. Sasuke looked like he was about to shout at the old man and Sakura looked like she had been betrayed. Naruto looked back at the third Hokage and calmly told him, because we are ready. The third stared at them a moment longer and then admitted, I guess you are. He pulled a scroll from his desk and tossed it to Kakashi before saying, I am assigning Team 7 a C-ranked escort and protection mission. Really? Who are we protecting? Naruto interrupted. I was about to introduce him. He turned to the door to the civilian waiting area and said, you can come in now, Tazuna-san. Sakura cringed when a middle-aged man with gray hair who stunk of sweat and booze stumbled into the room. He took one look at his escort and grabbed his sake bottle. After a couple drinks for fortification he finally asked, what's this? The took another drink and shouted, they are all a bunch of super brats. He wiped the trail of sake running from his lips with the towel he had around his neck and turned to the Hokage, especially the shortest one with the stupid-looking face. Naruto watched with bile fascination. Tazuna swung around and shouted, are you really a ninja? When Naruto didn't respond he took a step and shouted, hey. Suddenly Naruto realized something and asked his teammates, I'm the shortest one, aren't I? Yep. Sasuke grabbed onto Naruto's wrist before he turned the drunk into a pincushion and angrily whispered, we can't kill the person we are supposed to protect, idiot. Naruto clenched his teeth and managed to nod when Tazuna continued his drunken rant. I am the super expert bridge builder Tazuna. He took another drink and mumbled, I expect you to provide me with super protection until I get back to my country and complete the bridge. Tazuna walked from the mission hall, and after a moment Team 7 followed him. As Naruto was about to step out of the office, he turned and told the Hokage, just so you know old man, in revenge for this I'm teaching Konohamaru how to use explosive tags the next time I see him. With a flourish Naruto strode out from the room leaving a shivering Hokage behind. Team 7 walked in silence to the village gates as their client ranted about how super he was. Sasuke was seriously reconsidering his decision to stop Naruto from killing the moron. Sakura happily zoned the old man out and was looking forward to seeing another country for the first time. When they walked through Konoha's massive gates, Naruto turned to his teammates and said, "You know, this is the first time I have ever left Konoha." Unfortunately, he said it loud enough for Tazuna to hear. The man stumbled over to Kakashi and shouted, "Am I really going to be safe with this brat?" Naruto clenched his fists and managed to calm himself enough to think, "I'm the team leader, I have got to stop this. He is disrespecting us in our village. How would Danzo-sensei handle this?" He couldn't think of anything, so he just decided to go with threats. Naruto took a deep breath and walked over to where Kakashi was placating Tazuna. When the drunk turned on him, Naruto hit him in the gut and sent him sprawling across the ground. He looked down at the bridge builder with his best sneer and said, "Let me make something very clear. We are ninja. We will protect you until our contract runs out. Now shut the hell up and let us do our job." The bridge builder looked like he wanted to protest when Sasuke broke into the conversation. Team leader could just kill him and hide the body. Unfortunate accidents happen all the time. Tazuna was mouthing team leader when Sakura added her 2 cents, "Why did ourselves? If he's paying for protection, some petty crook or another wants to kill him. We might even make some money turning him over." The drunk's eyes went wide open and the flush vanished from his face. He stuttered, "You wouldn't do that, would you?" Naruto looked at Kakashi a moment, then said, "We are ninja." Before helping the drunk onto his feet, Naruto turned to his teammates and said, "We will stay in close formation with Tazuna-san. I will create a few shadow clones to scout the area around us and have a decoy group of clones stay about 5 minutes ahead of us on the road. Any suggestions?" Kakashi thought a moment and said, "Anything I can think of would be excessive for this level of protection. Are you sure you can handle the strain of maintaining that many clones?" He was mildly disconcerted by the 3 enigmatic grins plastered on the faces of Team 7 but brushed it off. After Naruto made his clones and put them into a decent patrol route, the team set off towards Wave Country. They walked quietly a long ways before Sakura finally broke the silence. "Tazuna-san, you're from Wave Country, right?" The bridge builder grumbled, "What about it?" Sakura was put off by the man's attitude and turned to Kakashi and asked, "I can't remember from Danzo-sensei's lectures, do they have ninjas in that country too?" He looked at Naruto a moment before giving her a smile and replying, "Not anymore." Sakura caught the hint and dropped the subject, but made a mental note to privately peruse it later. If it involved her teammate, she needed to know. Naruto froze. 2 mist ninja just ambushed my decoy clones. They use a chain and claws in combat and targeted your clone first, Captain. Friends of yours? Kakashi swore and said, "I don't recognize them. You don't have time to look through your bingo book. They just finished off the last of my clones and are headed this way." As if to accentuate Naruto's comment, a swarm of kunai exploded from the trees around them. Naruto and Sakura closed in on each side of Tazuna and swatted the kunai that would hit him out of the air, leaving Kakashi and Sasuke to fend for themselves. Naruto shouted to Sasuke, "Flush them out." In response, Sasuke rapidly signed Fire Style, Great Fireball. Naruto waited a second, then inhaled deeply and signed Wind Style, Gentle Breeze. When the wind technique caught up with the fireball, it went from a bright orange to a dark, barely visible blue for a fraction of a second before it exploded into the woods with a bass thump. Sakura looked at the devastation and asked, "Do you think?" when a pair of mist ninja shot from the ground. One jumped high, dragging at the sharp chain which connected him to the other ninja into the air with him, when the other charged the group. Naruto met the one that charged head-on with a brutal kick. The mist ninja countered with a vicious jab from the heavy metal claw he wore on his right hand. When Naruto ducked under the blow, he brought the claw low and tried to wrap Naruto in the chain. Sasuke followed the one that jumped and mentally judged he didn't have time for another fireball, so sent a trio of kunai towards the mist ninja before jumping up to meet him. The ninja brought the gauntlet on his left hand down in a hard chop as soon as Sasuke was in range. Sasuke accepted the blow on his arm guards and twisted underneath the mist ninja the second before they landed. The mist ninja rolled the second they hit the ground, dodging Sasuke's attempt to put a kunai in his back. Then Sakura finished the last sign and whispered, "Demonic illusion, hell viewing." For a fraction of a second Naruto's foe froze before clasping his hands together and dismissing the genjutsu, but that was all Naruto needed. As soon as the opening came, Naruto stepped inside the Mist Ninja's guard and sent him to the ground with a crushing series of blows to his knee, chest and head. For a fraction of a second he paused, deciding whether or not to finish off his dazed foe. That was all the other Mist Ninja needed to hit him from behind. Sasuke's opponent saw his brother go down and sent a kick at Sasuke. It was blocked easily, but it was enough to give him some room. He yanked on the chain connecting him with his brother hard, sending him flying towards Naruto's back. Naruto heard Sasuke shout in supreme and barely turned fast enough to avoid being skewed. He brought his arm guards together and blocked the claw, leaving him wide open to the Mist Ninja's haymaker. Naruto was sent flying and Sakura desperately whispered demonic illusion, false surroundings. She barely made it in time to save Naruto from the Mist Ninja's follow-up attack. The Mist Ninja snarled as the Leaf Ninja who had hurt his brother vanished from view and stabbed where he thought the brat had fallen. He would have killed Naruto if the blonde genin hadn't rolled away a second before. When his claw didn't contact anything, the Mist Ninja spared a second to cancel the illusion and resolved to kill the pink brat who kept throwing up genjutsu. He made it 2 steps before Kakashi decided to intervene in the fight. Kakashi appeared suddenly in front of the arranged Mist Ninja and sent a sudden strike to the ninja's leg. There was a sickening crack of breaking bone and the Mist Ninja was on the ground. The ninja tried to roll away, but froze when he felt the sharp point of Sasuke's kunai against the back of his neck. Naruto picked himself off of the ground and wiped the trail of blood dripping from his mouth before asking, "So friends of yours?" Before Kakashi could answer, Sakura interrupted, "Their weapons were poisoned. You and Sasuke-kun need to take the general antidote in case you got nicked." Naruto crunched the antidote pill and waited while Kakashi flipped through his bingo book. The demon brothers, Gozu and Maizu, are missing ninja from the Hidden Mist. They graduated the academy at 12 and were promoted to Chunin at 18. Naruto nodded and began to disarm the one Kakashi indicated was Gozu while Sasuke worked on Maizu. They had them both tied up by the time Maizu recovered consciousness. Kakashi gestured for Naruto to begin while Sakura dragged a scared Tazuna from the area. Naruto gave them a fake smile and ran everything Danzo-sensei had taught him about a field interrogation before he said, "Let's keep this simple, we are all professionals here. You Gozu will tell me what I want to know or I kill your brother." Maizu spat at him, "You don't have the guts, brat." Naruto gestured to Sasuke. Maizu was sent sprawling with a vicious kick to the back of his head. When he tried to rise, Naruto stepped on his head and growled in his ear, "I wasn't talking to you." Gozu decided to intervene before the blonde one killed his brother. "Ask, then I'll decide if I want to answer. You don't have time to interrogate us and protect Tazuna." Kakashi's eyes widened a bit and Naruto's smile was back. "You just told me everything I needed to know. Sasuke, can you watch them for a bit? The captain and I need to have a little discussion with Tazuna." Sasuke asked, "Why don't we just kill them?" But there wasn't really any force behind the question. Their alive bounty is higher. Fair enough. Tazuna was waiting with Sakura a bit up the road. Sakura saw their serious expressions and wondered what they had learned. Her question was answered a moment later when Naruto asked, "Tazuna-san, would you kindly explain why 2 missing ninja from the Hidden Mist are trying to kill you?" Tazuna started to sweat a bit and denied, "They didn't have anything to do with me." "Oh, then why do 2 missing ninja know your name?" Tazuna's mouth worked like a fish for a moment, then he sighed and said, "A super dangerous man is after my life." Kakashi, Naruto and Sakura gave him very level looks. Tazuna winced, then continued, "You have probably at least heard of his name. The wealthy shipping magnate. A man named Gato." "Crap." Naruto gave Sakura a strange look after the unexpected outburst, then asked, "Okay, what do you know Sakura-chan?" "He was on that list of people that Danzo-sensei made me memorize. He is an incredibly rich man with no allegiance or moral framework. Sensei's notes advised that if we needed supplies and are unable to use the normal sources, Gato will sell almost anything for a price." Tazuna picked up where Sakura left off. He spent years selling illegal items like drugs and slaves, but a year ago he decided to expand his business. He hired a bunch of thugs and mercenaries along with a few ninja and quickly took over Wave's shipping industry. Besides a few smugglers, he controls everything that goes in and out of the country. The bridge builder's face twisted into a smile and he grandstanded. The only thing he fears now is the completion of the bridge. If the bridge falls, then so does Wave. This mission is at least B rank. Why did you knowingly hire us under false circumstances? Wave country is super poor. We don't have enough money for an expensive B rank mission. But don't worry, if you abandon me now I will certainly die. My cute grandson will only cry for a few days. Oh yeah, and my beautiful daughter will spend the rest of her days hating Leaf Ninja. But it won't be your fault at all, so don't worry. Naruto felt bad for the bridge builder but couldn't help but mutter, sob story, after the over-the-top presentation of his troubles. Naruto. Sakura shouted. Evidently she didn't agree. We can't just abandon them. Sakura, remember what Danzo-sensei said and get a hold of your emotions. If Gato is as rich as you say, then the next attack isn't going to be a pair of Chunin. It's going to be Junin. I don't want to be responsible for your death, Sakura-chan. She blushed a bit then said, despite the lies, if we abandon our client in the face of adversity it looks bad for the Leaf. Naruto nodded then said, Sakura-chan, can you grab Sasuke? He needs to be involved in this discussion. He waited for her to get out of earshot before he asked, Captain, what's your opinion? You have a lot more experience at this than us. You did well in the fight against the Demon Brothers, and you handled yourselves well after it. I hesitated, it could have cost me my life. It was your first time in combat. It was a mistake. Kakashi opened his mouth, then closed it and conceded the point. After a moment of thought he said, during that fight and after, none of you have acted like I expect Genin to. You all act like a team of Chunin even if your abilities aren't quite there yet, and if I was leading a team of Chunin I would say go ahead on this mission. Naruto saw Sakura and Sasuke walk towards them and said, thanks, Captain. When Sasuke arrived, Naruto asked, has Sakura filled you in? Sasuke nodded and Naruto put a smile on his face, so how did you like the warm-up? Sasuke smirked and answered, if Junin aren't any better they might as well go ahead and name you Hokage. Naruto muttered, Danzo-sensei is going to be furious. Then looked at his teammates and asked, are you ready to continue this mission knowing that we will be a serious risk to life and limb? The responses were immediate and unfaltering, I am. Well, Captain, it looks like your soldiers are ready to march. Kakashi paused a moment then answered, I will protect you even if it kills me. I don't let my comrades die. He didn't want to know what Danzo would do to him if he lived after one of them dying. When it came to Team 7 the man scared him even more than normal. They were all silent a moment until Tazuna asked, so what are you going to do with the two you caught? Naruto looked at Kakashi for confirmation then answered, we can find them in a hidden area with a few clones as guards and send a clone as a runner to Leaf for a retrieval team. After Naruto finished making the necessary clones they set off again. They walked quietly, each lost in their own worries and responsibilities until something occurred to Naruto. If Gato controls all of the shipping into and out of Wave, how are we going to get in? Tazuna looked at the blonde genin in disbelief and said, for a team leader you sure are ill-informed about the mission. Naruto gave him an ugly look and answered, and whose fault is that? Kakashi intervened before Naruto tore into the man, mine. The mission scroll details the route, sorry for not sharing. Sasuke watched as Naruto reined his temper in. He waited for Naruto to look relatively calm before he asked Kakashi, so how are we going to get into Wave without Gato knowing, Captain? This road leads to one of the fishing villages that Gato nominally controls, but in reality a few smugglers operate out of it without his knowledge. We will meet our ride about a mile south of the village and ride a boat to Wave's main island. From there it is a short walk to Tazuna's house. The promised smuggler was a gruff man in his 30s who hid as much of his face as possible underneath his hat. The man nodded to Tazuna and escorted them onto his boat without a word. Naruto tried to find a comfortable seat among the tackle the man had left lying in the bottom of the boat. With a nervous glance about, the man pushed off the shore with his long paddle and started the engine. A moment later they were speeding out into the sea. The smugglers spoke abruptly. Gato changed his patrol boat's routes. I'm going to run us out into the Tear instead of following the coast. I'll take us under power all the way to North Branch, then I'll kill the motor and drift us down the strait. We will come into the main channel as late as possible, then cross it quickly near your bridge. Once we're at the wave break we will take the route with vegetation in case we're being pursued. I'll use that abandoned dock near your bridge, Tazuna. Naruto wondered if he was the only one that had no idea what the smuggler was talking about, but decided against asking questions when Tazuna nodded and said, "Thanks." The smuggler gave him an irritated look and said, "Thank me when you get there. If we see one of Gatu's patrols, you are all swimming." The bridge was one of the most impressive structures Naruto had ever seen. He decided he might even take the drunk's super expert bridge builder remark seriously. When he had heard Tazuna's story, he hadn't realized the scale of the project. He idly wondered how a poor island nation could afford a giant bridge, but decided against asking. A moment later, they were close enough to the bridge for him to answer his own question. The stone used in its construction was obviously salvaged from somewhere else. Many blocks had streaks of old paint on them, and the stone was occasionally engraved with symbols. One in particular occurred over and over. A circle with 4 points on the inside surrounding a spiral. The fog rolled in when they reached the island's wave break. Naruto grimly smiled. The fog would make it harder to find them. The smuggler took them through one of the wave break's tunnels. Sakura, Sasuke and Naruto stood and took in their first view of wave. A few moments later, the smuggler pulled them up against an abandoned dock. They disembarked quietly. Once they were all off, the smuggler looked at Tazuna and said, "This is it for me, goodbye and good luck." Tazuna smiled back at the smuggler and replied, "Thank you so much." The smuggler pushed off the dock and revved the motor. In another moment he had vanished into the vegetation.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.